Pittsburgh City Council meeting to order, Wednesday, June 13th, 2007. Tonight is the first of our series of budget hearings. Tonight on the agenda we have Monty, the Building Department, the IDC, and the Library. I just want to start out with a comment myself. I brought along with me a letter that we received recently from the Department of Revenue. The Department of Revenue told us back in January and also in May that the City of Fitchburg repeatedly overstates its revenue. It gives money for pay raises that it doesn't have. It continues not to put money away for a rainy day fund or the surplus account, and we don't have a long-range plan. When we received our budget back on whatever date it was supplied to us by the mayor, June 5th, none of the above was taken into consideration, and we were given a budget that overstated revenues. It had a trash fee in there that the council had never seen before. We didn't know how we were going to implement what it was going to produce for us, but yet it said 80% of all of the revenues was going to be collected and depended upon this year. I believe that we have probably close to $1 million in pay raises that the council has not seen contracts for in this budget. There was a laughable amount of money put aside for a rainy day fund, and there is absolutely no forethought as to what this means for us tomorrow. So, councilors, as we go through this over the next 2 weeks, we have a lot of tough decisions to make. We need to be leading this city, and I think that we're up for the challenge, and I think we need to get on with it. Any other comments? Councilor Hay.
Thank you, Mr. President. Councilors, Webster's New World Dictionary of the American Language defines the word broke as having little or no money, bankrupt. What about this definition does the mayor not understand? How can the mayor continue to say the situation exists because, and I quote, expenditures are exceeding revenues, and yet he continues to increase expenditures? How, when we face such a financial crisis, is the mayor unable or unwilling to stop spending money we don't have? How, when we face such a reduction in personnel and services, can he justify his negotiations and raises that are included in the budget he submitted to this council? How can the mayor claim the proposed budget is balanced when $760,000 in revenue comes from a program that has yet to be approved by the City Council? While I understand that all revenue streams, i.e. property tax, parking meters, permits, and fees, are projections, they are at least existing streams authorized and approved by the City Council, unlike the trash fee revenue that is included in the budget. How can the mayor expect this council to trust him regarding our financial status when he withholds information like the January 11th, 2007 letter from the Department of Revenue? How can the mayor continue to attempt to deflect criticism and abdicate his responsibility for this financial crisis when he has ignored his advisors and this council's continued urgings to monitor spending and reduce income projections? Why has the mayor for so long refused to consider a city-run ambulance service as a source of revenue? Why has the mayor neglected to act on my petition requesting a study of the number of police and fire personnel needed to properly protect the residents of Fitchburg? How can the mayor continue to state that we need more personnel for public safety and then negotiate contracts that result in a reduction of the workforce? Why has the mayor ignored the council's cries and DOR's suggestions that we increase our stabilization fund? I have raised these questions not to get a response from the mayor, but instead to show on how many fronts I believe he has failed in submitting his proposed budget to the council. Instead of engaging the mayor in endless debate regarding who is responsible for this financial crisis we face, I would like to ask the council to put aside our opinions of the mayor and our disappointment in his actions, and instead be willing to do the work the mayor was unwilling or unable to do when he created the budget. If we as a council are willing to stand up and say enough is enough, we can make decisions that in time will right the ship. We need to be willing to say there are no sacred cows. Every department and every position needs to be open to scrutiny and review. All expenditures need to be thoroughly examined. Every potential revenue source needs to be explored. This work will take courage. This work will take a commitment to take some hits for the long-term good of the city. This work will require that we place the interests of the city before our individual interests. We as a council will need to make cuts that will, in the short term, hurt the city and hurt individuals. We as a council will have to make decisions that are going to be unpopular with both residents and city employees. Since I, and I assume most of you, have come to the conclusion that the mayor is incapable of making tough or unpopular decisions regarding the city's finances, we as a body have to have the wherewithal to ensure that spending is held in line to equal revenue. We have a limited number of options regarding actions we may take in response to the budget submitted by the mayor. We can, 1, pass the budget, which I believe will result in the state coming in and taking over the finances of the city. We can, 2, take no action, in which case the budget would then be back in the mayor's court, requiring him to either cut $760,000 or find $760,000 in increased revenues to balance the budget. Or we can make the cuts necessary to balance the budget and then work with the mayor and department heads to increase revenues. If we as a council choose the third option, I hope residents and city employees will understand that all actions taken regarding the budget are in the long-term best interests of the city. They do not reflect our opinion of the services the city should provide and should be supplying to the residents. They are no reflection of any employee's job performance. We simply need to get our finances in order. This will be, in the long run, enable us to improve and increase services to the residents and improve the quality of life in Fitchburg. Thank you.
Councilor Donnelly.
Thank you, Mr. President. I agree 100% with what Councilor Hayes said. We have once again been placed in a very bad position by the mayor. In the past, myself included, have accepted the mayor's representations that the budget is presented is balanced and in the best interest of the city. I believe what we have now is neither balanced nor in the best interest of the city. It is incumbent upon us, as a unified council, not to simply attack the mayor, but to make this entire budget in a fashion that is in the best interest of the city. The overall financial health of the city must be our goal and our primary focus. Everything else has to be secondary. We have a tremendous amount of work to do in a very short time. The mayor obviously doesn't think we can do it. I hope that the unions and the department heads recognize the position we are all in and work with us to fashion a budget that is not only balanced, but in the best interest of the city. Our job is to work for the taxpayers and to be as fair as we possibly can be to them. It's time to roll up our sleeves and accomplish this. Thank you.
Councilor Connery.
Mr. President, prior to tonight's meeting, a gentleman who comes to many of these council meetings handed me a letter and asked permission to have this read before the city council, so I therefore ask my colleagues if I may read this letter from Mr. Hank Wicker.
Councilor.
I, Hank Wicker, being of sound mind and body, am a senior citizen and taxpayer of the city of Fitchburg. I am deeply troubled with the goings-on in the city government of Fitchburg. There's several matters that I would like the present mayor to explain since he took office 5 years ago, going on 6. They are as follows. Number one, what happened to the $1.2 million in free cash that the previous mayor left him? Explain. Number two, furthermore, several years ago, Leominster Developer purchased land from the city. I understand $400,000. Explain what happened to that money. Number three, delinquent taxpayers owing the city several million dollars for years, and I don't want to hear the Treasury fiasco. Explain. Number four, the city's enterprise fund, I'll address it later, as being wastewater fund and the city water fund. Wastewater, recently we had to raise the rates, poor management, no money. However, no, I'll tell you about the city water fund. B, I understand we are sitting with several million dollars in free cash. Question, are these two different worlds? Wastewater, city bankrupt, water fund living in luxury, two worlds apart. A simple answer to me looks like someone was buying votes for themselves with taxpayers' money. Councilors, remember, the people put you in office. They can also remove you. Hank, this is from Mr. Wicker on Albee Street. I'd like to have it entered into the record. I just would like to make a comment about Mr. Wicker's final comment. Reminder, the people put you in office. They can also remove you. We know that, Mr. Wicker. We are going to work in the best interest of the city. However, I do not take that as a threat, because I will work in the best interest of the city and the taxpayers. And if I may, Mr. President, just a closing remark. I'd like to make a brief statement as we moved into the FY 2008 budget. I believe that this council has been placed in an untenable position by the mayor of this city by presenting us with an unbalanced budget. This document was tossed to the council, and the mayor intimated that the ball is in your court, and basically washed his hands of the budget due to our immediate rejection of the trash fee. I do not believe that this council will wash their hands of the budget. Just because there is a lack of leadership coming from the mayor's office does not mean we will not try to right the city's ship. Tonight, we embark on a challenge. Will it be easy? No. Will it be personal? No. Will it be painful for the city council and the city departments? The answer is yes. We've been elected to do what is right for the taxpayers, and these budget sessions must be free of rhetoric, and everyone must have the guts to pick up the leadership role that has been missing from the corner office. This council, and I hate to use this analogy, has been treated like mushrooms, kept in the dark, and fed manure. Now is the time to clear the air. Colleagues, we're in this thing together. Thank you.
Councilor Caddy.
To make it short, exactly how I feel tonight, starting the budget tonight. I apologize to all the department heads and all the workers. I'm not going to vote for any line items that includes a raise. That's pretty simple. I asked Mr. Saracen, if I eliminate a line item, please keep a record of it. So at the end of this budget, we have a figure on how much we've cut out. If it's not enough, we're going to be going to the department heads to ask for more. If it's too much, we'll go back and prioritize and put it back in. But I think Councilor Connery is right. We're going to do it. I hope everybody's in to do it, because we got to do it. Thank you.
I know over the next 2 weeks, we will not all agree on everything, and we will not all be as one, but I hope when we get to the final number, we will have an 11-0 vote on what we propose to be the city's budget. Councilor Clark.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, councilors, and Mr. Wicker. Like Councilor Hay, I went to my dictionary, and I looked up the word essential, a basic, indispensable, or necessary element. That's what we have to work on in this council in the next couple of weeks. What is essential for the city of Fitchburg to continue? We have a $96 million budget in front of us. I don't believe that everything in that budget is essential, and that's what we have to work on. Thank you.
Councilor DiMartino?
I'm absolutely frustrated here tonight. I wanted the budget to be sent back to the mayor and given him time frame in 4 days to come back with it, because we did not cause the problem. The front office did. The mayor was hallucinating when he said that there was 760 for the trash pickup. And we're going to sit here and we're going to do some hard work here. And all the mayor has to do is sit back and say, I didn't take your raise away, the councillors did. The mayor has never balanced the budget in the 5 years he's been in office. This whole group here voted last year to pass his budget. I think I knew it wasn't balanced. I think everybody did, but they believed him. I know I don't have a vote to take it back to him, because now we're going to do the work, and I am part of the unit. But I've been here 14 years, and we didn't get here overnight. This has been a 5-year long haul. I will listen to my colleagues. I do caution people that a lot of this is union, a lot of this has been promised, and that we have to be very careful how we do this. But I will listen. I'm part of the team. But this is not just projecting budget. This is hallucination on the mayor's part that we had that money, and that should have never been allowed to even be put into the budget. So now we're doing his work, and that's not fair to us. So I feel very uneasy about the fact what we're going to do tonight, but I'm in for it. Thank you very much.
Everyone. Councilor DeSalvatore?
Thank you, Mr. President. Last year, we put our trust in the mayor. This year, we need to put our trust in ourselves. All differences aside, let's get to work. Thank you.
Councilor Cruz?
I agree with all my colleagues here, me being the newest councilor here. I would just ask that as we go through this budget, and we know we have to make cuts, there's no doubt about it, that as we go through this budget, that we be very careful where we make our cuts, and take into consideration the general public's opinion as far as what their priorities are. With that said, I'm ready to move forward.
You're on. Welcome.
I don't know if it's a good thing to go first after that or not.
Do I hear a motion to cut out Monty Tech's budget? No.
Can you give us pages, Mr. President?
We are on Monty Tech's budget. I believe they sent us an educational plan, but we also have page 40 of our budget. Regional school assessment amount requested $1,808,758. Allowed by the mayor, $1,808,758.
Do you want a statement or to me to answer questions directly? How would you prefer to proceed?
You want to just go over any highlights of your plan?
Your assessment that we're talking about, as you're seeing, is a 10% increase, and your first question is why. The average assessment for all 18 communities is 5%, so why is Fitchburg approaching 10? There's 26 additional students at Monty Tech this year from Fitchburg than there were the year before. Our operating budget is driven by how many students you send to us. The capital budget is driven. We have two budgets, operating and capital. The capital is by the percentage of the school that you own. That's the constant, or fairly constant. And the one that varies from year to year is the student count. The more students, the higher it goes up. Our budget is up for the same reason that you're probably going to struggle here this evening. Health insurance cost increases approaching 20%. There was a negotiated raise of 3% for employees. And we have the issue of increased student enrollment, which we're over 1,300 students this year for the first time, so we needed to add some additional staff, which we had not been doing. I know that's not good news to anybody's ears sitting here, because I certainly can read the papers, and I hear the plight here this evening. So, but that's the story of where we're at, and I'll be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Councilor Hay.
Thank you, Mr. President. The increase of 26 students. Mr. O'Donnell used to complain that Fitchburg didn't get additional students, that the system didn't work for Fitchburg, and thus we had fewer students beyond our allocated number. Has that system changed, or have our students gotten higher in that pecking order because they were more deserving to receive those slots?
Fitchburg has always received more than what their quota is, and just to give a brief how that works, April 1st we accept students. June 1, the town quotas go away, and that's that additional pool. The April 1 to June 1st is city and town quotas. How do we decide that? We add up all the school-age attending children. This is outlined in the district agreement that was founded in 1965. It's about 29,000 school-age attending children in all 18 cities and towns. How many school-age attending children in your city? What percentage of the 29,000 that is? That's the percentage of seats you get in the freshman class. Freshman class is about 350 students. So by quota, and I'm talking round numbers off the top of my head, Fitchburg's about 88 students in the freshman class. I think we took in 105 students from Fitchburg in the freshman class. There's 407 students from Fitchburg at Monty Tech right now. So you're above your quota. Though historically, and that's probably what Mr. O'Donnell was always referring to, it's less than, at one time Fitchburg probably had closer to 500 students there. Now it's at 407, and there's a couple of reasons that contribute. One, your school-age attending children in the city of Fitchburg is less. So you actually own a little bit less percentage of the school. Like this year alone, October 1, 05 to October 1, 06, you're down about 300 students in your district. So the percentage dropped a little of ownership, and that's been happening over a couple of years. And then, in the late 80s, they expanded from 11 communities to 17, and then in 2000 they added the 18th community. And I wasn't around then, but my guess is probably Fitchburg was not a supporter of that, because that did result in a change of the quotas. So, but at that time, the school had 800 kids and was struggling to enroll students, and they did vote to expand.
Thank you.
Councilor Connery.
Yes, Superintendent, you mentioned that there will be 26 additional students for Monty Tech. Is that 26 additional students a projection for FY08?
No, we're actually a year behind, but based on the district agreement on, so that's how many students were there on the October 1 report. The number that all school systems have to report to the Department of Education is October 1. So that, on October 1st, 2006, you had the 26 additional students over October 1, 2005. How many more have applied for this incoming freshman class? I don't have that. I don't have that number yet, but do I think there'll be a 26 student increase for October 1 of 07? This would show up in your fiscal year 09 budget. I don't think so. We're pretty much at capacity of squeezing students in, so I don't think they'll, but I don't know. I don't have that number, how many have been admitted from Fitchburg, and we're just doing the June ones right now. So we filled your quota, which is around 88 students on April 1st, sent out those letters of acceptance, along with a card that they have to return, that they want the seat, and some students don't. So then we go to the next person on the list and the next person on the list. And what happened after June 1st, there's a waiting list of, well, we had 719 applications for 350 openings. So there's a waiting list out there of over 300 students. And according to the agreement, they're ranked highest to lowest on 5 criteria. And the next, there was about 45 seats available after June 1st. And I really don't know what town they went to or what city they went to regardless, so. But you'll be over your quota. How much over? I don't know. You could actually see, depending on how many seniors graduated last week, you might actually see a decrease in the numbers by next October 1st.
Thank you, sir.
Councilor DiMartino.
Ed, the children come from all over. Do you have the amount of money that you spend on busing for the Fitchburg?
For Fitchburg, I have what your transportation assessment is. Fitchburg's transportation assessment is $316,000. Our total transportation budget is over $1 million, like 1.1 million, somewhere
But
around.
just for the Fitchburg kids, I'm talking
Right,
about.
about $316,000. Yep.
Thank you.
Any other questions, councilors? Councilor Caddy.
Sir, what's the cost per student?
Well, it varies by the cost per student, tuition, if we were charging tuition, which we don't, the state sets our tuition rate. For next year, it's $14,400. Now, that sounds very impressive, because it's a lot more than what your per pupil spending is here in Fitchburg, but you got to compare us to regional vocational schools. There's 29 regional vocational schools in the state of Massachusetts. We are 6th from the bottom in per pupil spending. So when I tell people that it's $14,000, I would love to have the $25,000 per student that Minuteman spends. And as you can imagine, its region plays a lot with what that number is. We go further west of here, Franklin County, McCantech, out in North Adams, the number drops. The lowest in the state is about just under $13,000. So that's what our tuition rate is. What does it cost Fitchburg per student? $4,444 if you take the assessment and divide it by how many. So that's
Again with that?
$4,444. So where does the difference come from? It comes from Chapter 70 funds directly to us. And that's the part that varies by community. The wealth of a community, as you know, is gauged by the state. If Holden, which is a part of our district, Holden assessment is $11,111 per student. So we get about $10,000 per student, Chapter 70, for every student from Fitchburg, and I only get $3,000 per student in Holden for Chapter 70. So I don't know if that answers your question.
It's costing us about $150,000 more this year, is that about right?
$161,000 more.
I did the division, and it came to $5,700. If we're only being charged $4,444, that's a difference of $1,300 per student. How can you account for that?
My math could be wrong. I don't know. I just quickly did it because when we don't look at it, I quickly did it while I was sitting there. I did the 1.8 million divided by 407 students, which is a total number, and I came up with $4,400 per student. But I could be wrong. I mean, we don't assess you that way. I mean, I'm just was trying to answer your question. So I might have used, unless I did the 1.6 million divided by 407. I don't know. I was. And what was the other part?
I'm pretty sure that
I could be wrong. It could be-
$5,700
I mean,
per student.
it could be $5,700 per student, then the balance would come from Chapter 70. I mean, we don't assess you that way, so I mean, I just know that that's a common question to ask, so I was just quickly dividing 407 into, I thought I had done the 1.8 million, but that could have been last year.
How many total Fitchburg students do we have in there right now? Do you know?
400 well, today, I don't know, when the budget, it goes by October 1 numbers, 407, there's 407 students from Pittsburgh.
Fitchburg students.
Out of the 1305
That was October 1?
Yes.
I'm all set, thank you.
Councilor Cruz. I have two questions. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have two questions for you. 2006, we averaged 5.4%. 2007, we're averaging about 5.2. Now, why the sudden increase, 10%? I understood your reasoning for it, because your budget restraints are
Yep.
a little higher, as are ours. And
Why your assessment's up? The biggest part of it is the 26 additional students. So no matter what increase our budget had, you're going to pay more for sending us the 26 additional students. So even if we had a 0% increase, there'd still be an additional assessment for those 26 additional students.
why would you say the sudden increase is, if our averages have always been below?
The increase in students? Because I listened to the city council last year when you asked me how I could possibly get more students in the school. No, I don't know. It varies from year to year. I have 6 communities that their numbers went down, and I have 12 that the numbers went up. We recruit the same way every year. You know, we send guidance counselors out to the 8th grade, talk to all the middle schools. We put on a little dog and pony show at all the 8th grades, show them we have career night, we have open house, we do VIP. So I really would be speculating on why there's more students from Fitchburg here this year, and in other years they go down.
Okay. And if we based it on 5.5%, which has been your averages, how many students would you lose? Would you say half the 25 extra?
I don't understand the question.
If this council decided not to offer what the mayor had agreed upon, 1.808, and we went with the averages for the last 3 years, how would that affect, would that cut the cost of the students from 25 to 12.5 or something to that effect? The extra students? What would you do in a case like that?
If you, would it affect the students? You mean, would there be, would I take less students? No, I can't accept or unaccept students based on whether you're going to vote my rate, you know, the raise increase or not. No, so that would remain the same. You know, I'll talk about an unpleasant for you budget reality. I mean, if a majority of the 18 communities vote the assessment as presented, the budget passes. So I don't, you know, and I don't mean that as a threat. I'm just telling you how the process works. So you could be faced, even if you voted down the assessment and 13 communities vote the assessment, the budget passes and the assessment stands, and you're obligated to pay that assessment.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you, Mr. President. Just for point of clarification, I think education is opportunity. This gives our students an opportunity. Just for fact-finding, would there be a limit, or could anybody in our school system or our administration limit the number of students? Supposing instead of 26 over, we were 50 over. And we can, I mean, it's obvious that we can show we're having problems with financial payments. Is there any limit, or would Monty Tech, would you be in control, or is our school system? Because for each student that leaves the Fitchburg school system, our bills technically really don't go down, but our expenses to Monty Tech do go up.
financing
So-
shifts, yeah.
Is it completely up to your acceptance process, or is there a limit that we could ever, and I'm not suggesting that we do, because I'm still trying to get this
We're bound-
opportunity.
We're bound by this district agreement that was formed and, you know, signed in 1965, that that's your quota. I'm aware of no mechanism to limit how many students could apply. The only limit that we have is the size of our freshman class, which is about 350. And let me talk to you about that for a minute, because you would say, well, Fitchburg High School doesn't have a limit on how many freshmen. If 600 show up and you were planning for 500, you got to find room for 600. Chapter 74 regulations, which is the vocational rules, we back our enrollment down from the size of our shops. What's the capacity, the square footage, and instructor-teacher ratios, because it's like an apprenticeship. So I can only put so many students with a plumber and so many with electricians. So that builds the capacity of the school by the size of our shops, and that's how we end up with a freshman class of 350. So I said your quota is about 88 students of that freshman class, and you ended up with 105 or something like that. Could you limit it to the 88? It would have to be a vote of, like, say that you want to opt out of those additional seats after June 1st because you want to save money. It would have to be a vote of the school committee to change that process. So it's unlikely that there would be a limit other than by the size of the class.
I just think it's, in 1965, when these rules were made, you had a Fitchburg Trade School and Leominster Trade School, and I don't know what they had in the other districts. One of the things that we see now, what's your college acceptance from your school, this graduating class? How many going to college?
Well,
Approximately.
54%, and of that 80%, it's Mount Wachusett Community College. So 80% of 50% going on to a 2-year college.
It's interesting because of a screening process that Monty Tech has, it's public, but with private school application process. And because so many kids now are going to college, the trade schools years ago, in the 50s and 60s, it was for the kid that couldn't do well in school. And now it's becoming a more elite. The trade schools are becoming more elite, and some of these kids do go to college, or so many of them go to college, that some of the children that I think back in the 60s or prior, when these programs were formed, they were formed for the students that weren't going to be able to go to college. So something has changed, and although I accept what was done in 1965, maybe some of those rules and regulations should be looked at.
The trades have changed since 1965. A lot of our trades do require further education or further technical training. I know, we're proud of kids from Monty Tech going on to college, but we're also proud of the students who are going on into trade and into the world of work, and a lot of them use their trade to pay their way through college. So I mean, I hear that analogy, and people say to me, nobody who goes to Monty Tech should go to college. It's there for a trade, and we do a follow-up study. We have, by law, we have to do a 1-year follow-up and where our students are, and that doesn't get asked of comprehensive education, because if you accept the premise that we're a vocational school, so everybody who goes to us should go to a trade, then a comprehensive high school, everybody should be being prepared for college. And if that's the case, we'll do a follow-up study in a comprehensive school and see how many of those students within 5 years of graduation have actually completed college. And I don't know if it would be as favorable of how many students from Monty Tech after 5 years out are still in the workforce. It was another part of your question that I wanted to address, and now I forgot it, but sorry.
There's enough information.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Councilor Hay.
You stated that our level was 88, and last year we had an additional 26. You know how many applied last year? Ballpark?
I want to say from Fitchburg, there was a waiting list of at least 100, if not somewhere 110 students from Fitchburg alone on the waiting list. So
we had 110 students who wanted to attend Monty Tech.
you had over 200 applications.
Who were unable to attend Monty Tech.
Yeah.
I know this is you want go back to
Now
it and then I'll
I
come.
what I was going to say.
Right.
The elitism part, the criteria in Monty Tech, up until 4 years ago, if you applied, you got in. I mean, it's I don't know what's happened. Part of it, we did a demographic study. Part of it is a bubble going through high school of school-age attending children. Part of it, I think it's a great school and we do a great job, so I don't know what else is driving these record applications. But we look at 5 criteria, and I don't think it's academically elite. It's attendance. Do you go to school every day? Because if you're going to learn a trade, you gotta. It's hands-on. You got to be there. We look at your discipline record, and you get a point value for everything. A recommendation from your sending school. Your academic record is only a fifth of it, and then an interview from our guidance counselor gives you a rating for your desire to come to Monty Tech. And if questions are like, did you ever come to our VIP program? Did you ever go to our open house? So academics is just 1/5 of it, and it's just in the past few years that it's even gotten competitive. So.
Congratulations.
I think that does create a dilemma, though, and we're not going to solve this through the budget process. As Councilor Donnelly indicated, 30 years ago, trade schools were for the students who people thought weren't academically ready to deal with regular high school. I think we need to look at, though, if what's occurring is what you're saying is occurring, we need to somehow find a way to address that so some kids who may not meet your 5 criteria, and I know academics is only one part of them, might have somehow an opportunity to attend, because that school might be what saves them. We see kids coming into a public school here from other areas, and something connects and something works right for them. In trade school, maybe, the vocational school may be what that person needs. And I don't know the answer to it, but I think it's a big picture item that needs to be looked at, that maybe some slots are set aside for certain at-risk boys and girls to try to make that opportunity available to them.
We are over 20% special needs population at Monty Tech, so that's a high percentage. And our minimum cutoff score of those 5 criteria, which add up to 100, is 45. So, please don't get the opinion that we're academically elite.
No.
We're servicing a high percentage special needs population, and it's a relatively low threshold to get in.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Superintendent, your current teacher contract ends when?
Next year, so we'll be reopening in October.
Okay,
So next school year is the last year of a 3-year contract.
July 1 of '08, you've got a new one, hopefully.
August of '08 it will expire.
Health insurance, what percentage of health insurance are faculty and teachers paying?
Anywhere from 75 to 85%, depending what plan they're on. It was higher. It was 90%. We were successful in a previous contract to ratchet that down to 87.5 and then 85. But it will certainly be on the table in the next round of contract negotiations, because it is a budget buster.
Is that the way it is for most trade schools,
Percentage-wise,
percentage-wise?
I don't know.
Thank you.
Okay, I just want to say, as an employer of your students, thank you. You do a great job.
Where do you employ them?
It's Weathervane Seafoods. Anybody else? Thank you very much. Councilor Connery.
I would just like to help the superintendent solve a question that he has, very simplistic. You said you didn't know what was driving the increase in enrollment applications. Have you called a plumber or an electrician lately and seen their bill?
If a student goes into one of those trades, stays in it, sticks in it, and after they leave us, they're still facing thousands of hours of training. But if they stick with it, it's a guaranteed income.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on, the next presentation or budget that we have is the Building Department, page 5 through 9. Start out with Building Personal Services. The councilors like to go line by line or total for the budget and then go line by line. Councilor Hay.
I'd recommend you read the amount requested total and the amount allowed by the mayor total, and then councilors can ask specific lines.
Okay. The amount requested, $477,619,000. The amount allowed by the mayor was $399,480,000. The amount projected total spent for the current fiscal year is $418,594. Councilors? Councilor DiMartino.
I see here that the head clerk is gone altogether. Is there provisions for a part-time or a full-time clerk to come in?
There's provisions under the, I believe it's the principal clerk, for a full-time principal clerk to replace the head clerk.
And does it look like that's going to happen?
I believe so.
Okay, thank you very much.
Councilor Clardy.
Are you going to go line by line now?
Go for it.
You want me to go for it?
Start off with, do I hear a motion?
Motion that the building commissioner for 2008 salary would be $73,996.
Second.
Speaking of the motion, Mr. President,
Councilor Hay.
are we going to entertain individual motions to amend the budget, and then at the end of this process, vote on an amended budget? Or are these going to be recommendations, and then we'll take them all at the end again?
I think since we're going to have so many recommendations, we have to take them item by item, and then and Mr. Saracen will keep track of them for us, and then we will review them at the end as to what we've done and where we're at, and what impact that may have made. So there'll be discussion as
So this is a motion to amend the budget.
amend the budget.
Thank you.
Nope. Motion made and seconded. You're talking about that. Yes, Mr. Saracen.
Just one item on that. The budget for fiscal year '07 was exactly 52 weeks in no days, but the budget for '08 is 52.2. So there is that, there is that slight $300 difference in exact amounts. If you want, I could provide that to you as you make your motions
Yes.
on each line.
That would be fair.
Okay?
So the amended amount would be,
$74,281.
motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Councilor Caddy.
Just my apologies to the building inspector. I hope you don't take this personal. And I think you're going to see that it's going to be like this all the way through. And again, to explain myself, when we get to the end, we're going to try to go back and prioritize, but we have to do something.
I fully understand what you're doing here. It's that if you go back through the entire list, I mean, you're going to be cutting, I hope, everybody on this list that's an employee, not just the department heads. And if that's the case, then it's going to take more than the 17 days you have left to go back to all of the unions and to cut all of those raises that were given. All that was given here was the step increase. If you look at the difference from '06 here, there is no difference than what I am getting now, but this is almost 3 years without a raise or without a step increase. All that this was bringing me up is to the steps that the councilors had accepted originally in the contracts for all of the department heads. So I am just being brought up to the point of where my step raise allows me to go to this particular year. To eliminate that means that I'm without a raise for 3 years. You look back at others that they won't go back to '06 if you're just going back to the '07 level funded. I had missed a year because of the 2-year increments that the council had approved for budget increases.
Thank you. Councilor Caddy.
Mr. Gallant, we need you to work with us. We need all the department heads to work with us. And there's going to be things that you know that we don't. So don't jump right in. If you got something to say, say it. But at the end of this hearing, I think we have to get over, we don't even, I want to say it's closer to $1.4 million that we got to cut out of this. So we've got to find it.
I understand fully, Counselor, but if you look at this, my budget is less than my, in the bottom line, is less than level funded for last year. And if you look over to '06, it's only approximately 13,000 more than the '06 budget. So I believe that I have contributed as much as that I possibly could, and without the other sections of this budget, you'll also see that I have cut in those areas. The heating, the electricity, every place that I could, and that our department is literally cut to the bone. And the amount of work that I do has tripled in the last 3 years.
Mr. President, may I?
Sure.
I think to keep this quicker, if I wanted to go back to the 73,996, Mr. Saracen corrected me and he got to the 74,281. We should do that. And in fact, department heads are sitting right here. You go back and digest this, and then line item for line item, you come to us. If there is a problem or an issue, you'll be able to address us with it. This is, what we're voting on tonight will not be the budget. What we're voting on tonight is trying to see how close we can come to saving the city. Certainly, if you have something to say, if you don't have to say it tonight, but you come back and you know where to find us. So you just happen to be the first person that's sitting there, but that's how I see this thing moving forward, so that we, by the end of this budget hearing, we have some figures.
Councilors, I feel that we are doing this for the right reason, and I don't think any apologies are necessary. We're not doing this to spite anybody, as things have been done here in the city over the last few years. We're not doing this out of ill feeling or ill will. So I don't feel that the councilors need to apologize for any decisions that we make through this process. We need to understand that, again, our job is going to be tough, and we just have to do our job. Councilor Hay.
Thank you, Mr. President. Councilor Caddy thinks that anybody's going to sit in that chair and agree with recommendations that we're making regarding cutting their budget and cutting their own personal salaries. We're going to be here for an awful long time doing an awful lot of apologizing and explaining. If we're going to do it, we need to do it. Personally, I disagree with making motions at this point in making amendments to the budget. I think the process is much better served if we go through the whole thing and at the end make them, but I'm willing to make that vote right now. But what that means is we may be voting to amend this and cut this line item now, and at the end of the process, if we found more than we need, we may be restoring some and rescinding some of our votes. And I think that's going to leave people in limbo during this process, so they can say, okay, I'm cut, but might I be back? And I'm not sure if that is the best way to treat the individuals. I think, for me, the best way to say is, yeah, this is one we're going to consider, and so that people know then that they're on that possibility. But one way or the other, it doesn't matter. We need to stand up and say these are the ones, but we can't be apologizing and expecting that people are going to sit there and say, oh yeah, well, that's great. Not going to happen. Thank you.
Councilor Salvatore.
In order to streamline this process, I understand there's going to be some people that are upset. We don't have the money to pay for this budget as is. So we're going to obviously make these cuts. Could you just go down through the list and give us the updated totals of what they would be with the extra .2 week added into it?
They're already there. They're in these line items, and if you look at the other staff, it appears as though they must be, they haven't negotiated the inspectional group because their rates haven't changed. On the other hand, the clerical group, they're in the middle of a contract. They're probably in their last year, so their rates, I think, are set, and they have steps and COLAs. So you may not be able to touch the clerks, as well as other groups, as you go through.
All right, thank you.
Motion was made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None in opposition. Local building inspector? All set?
That's a new position, isn't it?
That's a change of a personnel within a position. Assistant inspector, part-time? Counselor Caddy.
Is that something we've had before, Mr. Gallant, a part-time inspector?
No, that assistant part-time is for the replacement fill-in for the inspectors that go on vacation.
Thank you.
Counselor Hay.
If we haven't had it before, why the total estimated spent from July 1 through June 30th was $12,000?
No, we have had it before.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you answered him that we hadn't had it before. Thank you.
Counselor Connery.
The $49,904 is allowed by the mayor for FY08. Should we not be cutting that to some degree? Should we not be cutting the assistant inspector part-time?
I think the assistant inspector should be cut $3,000, but I would entertain a motion for that.
I'll make the motion to amend it to cut it to $1,000.
$12,000?
12,000, sorry.
Second.
Second.
Motion made and second to cut the assistant inspector part-time from $12,000 to from $15,000 to $12,000. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Counselor Caddy.
Are you going on to the next one?
Yep.
I have a question for Mr. Saracen. Is this one hasn't moved much? Is that what you were talking about the...
Yeah, if you look, the rates for the permanent positions, the inspector of plumbing and gas, wire inspector, those are the people that have been here for a long time. You can see their rates haven't changed, so they haven't completed negotiations for '08. So that's why there's no change in there.
So should well, there's a small change. Should these figures stay?
Well, the small change is just 52, an extra day in the year.
That was my question.
Yes.
So could you lead us when we come to one of these so that we
Yeah.
don't have to kill ourselves?
Right, oh yeah.
So the next two, which would be the inspector plumbing and wire inspector, we should keep what was allowed by the mayor.
As well as the maintenance man.
Okay.
That person is in that group also.
I make a motion to accept those three figures.
Second.
Motion made and second to accept the next three, plumbing inspector, wiring inspector, and maintenance position, as is Counselor Hay.
Mr. President, are we going to amend or accept every line item?
I don't think that it's necessary to do the acceptance of every line item, just the ones that we're going to change, but we can vote on this. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Mr. President, opposition.
One in opposition. So I think going forward, we only need to make motions on the ones that we will amend.
Sure.
as long as the bottom line stays. Zoning Board Chairperson. Is there a reason why, by statute, the Zoning Board Chairperson is the only board chairperson that gets a stipend?
Isn't by any of the laws or codes. It went back a number of years, about 15 years. We had a zoning board chairman that was an attorney that took care of the minutes and the decisions and writing them up from her law office in the city, and to reimburse her for her staff's time. They had come up with a stipend to be able to take that into consideration. When you look at this year's budget, the $19,812 for principal clerk last year was basically for the Zoning Board of Appeals clerk that did that time frame. So really, at that period of time, the $1,668 wasn't necessary. But in the coming fiscal year, the $41,800 for the principal clerk is going to be replacing my head clerk, and none of that time would be able to be spent on Zoning Board of Appeals decisions. So having the Zoning Board of Appeals chairman being an attorney, that $1,668 may be necessary to pay for his clerical staff in his office to take care of the minutes and decisions.
Councilor Conry.
Based on the explanation given to us by the building superintendent, the zoning board is a volunteer, everyone there is a volunteer appointed by the mayor. Most chairpersons do their own minutes. I make a motion to strike that $1,668 from the budget.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to reduce the zoning board chairperson by $1,668. Any further discussion? Councilor Hay.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm certainly going to vote for this because, well, my question was going to be, what if the chairman of the Zoning Board of Appeals wasn't an attorney? Thank you.
Yeah.
I just wanted to add on that line item, it is set by city ordinance.
Yes.
It's an old ordinance, but it would have to be amended. Any salary that's set by ordinance has to be funded in the fall. You have to provide those monies to fund that position for the year. Otherwise, you eliminate the position. So you'd have to do an ordinance to eliminate it or bring it to zero.
Councilor Donnelly.
Well, I go along with the eliminate. We're not going to find I don't know how the attorney that could afford to do it for $1,600 then. We're going to have to find someone to do this because I don't believe that this attorney's going to be able to take care of this for $1,600. But I think they need staff to do these interpretations, and your clerk now is going to be the only one that's been to school to take care of these things, so. But I move to strike this. This is one of the only boards. The planning office does not have a paid chair. Excuse me, planning board does not have a paid chair, and there is a staff person that does all of the reports.
Could you just, for our next meeting, have the ordinance that we'll have to amend?
Right, I think it would start with a petition, right?
But can you make sure that there is an
bring it
ordinance?
forward?
Yes.
I can, yeah, I have it.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I'm opposed.
One in opposition. Overtime? Higher classifications? Shift differentials? Clothing allowance? Longevity? Sick leave buyback? Councilor Cruz.
Question in reference to longevity. Are we talking the matrix again with longevities?
That's contract.
Contract negotiated.
Right.
So there's absolutely no way of cutting that back.
Not unless there was an increase due to a contract that's still pending. There's no increase in there for any contract that's still pending.
I believe there's no increase in longevity throughout. It's usually about $345 a year for every 5 years, 5-year increments. So the first year, it's first 5 years. After that, you get $345 per year, and then $690 and on after 10 years.
Councilor Boisvert.
Yeah, can we visit this line item on clothing allowance? Who does that cover?
Union contractors.
Clothing allowance covers all of the inspectors.
Do they have uniforms?
No, they don't.
Just to follow up on that, if there's no contract that's currently being negotiated, why is there an increase? Is that because of an extra inspector?
I believe it's part of whatever their original contract, in the extra inspector, but I believe that was in their contract for each year. There was some change. I'm not sure exactly what it is. But,
I'm not done with the clothing allowance here. If they don't have uniforms,
Right.
are we under contract to supply $3,000 for clothing allowance?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Councilor Hay.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have a question, more of a comment. If we are looking for ways to get some money and to ultimately take control of some of the money, one of the areas we could do that in is overtime. It's not a big one in this department. They spent 25 last year. They requested 30. The mayor gave them 25. There's nothing to stop us from cutting that. And if during the year they need more money for overtime, they come back before us and they justify why they need that money, as opposed
in the form of a motion.
As opposed, we're getting there, Mr. President. As opposed to simply giving it to them, and it has nothing to do with Mr. Gland or this department. But every department gets overtime. You give them overtime, they use it. Okay? If they have to come back to this council to request funds for overtime, then there's an explanation, and we get to make a determination of whether that is appropriate and whether that money's been used in a judicious manner, by the manager. So, I'll make a motion that we cut the overtime line from $25,000 to $15,000.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to cut overtime from $25,000 to $15,000. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Are we done with that page? Councilor Boisvert.
I hate to be a pain in the neck here, but on this clothing allowance, it is $3,000. And if, I would like to see a copy of the contract that says we have to supply $3,000 worth of clothing to inspectors.
Correct. If there's a reason why it can't stay at $2,600, I'd like to see that. Or $2,500.
24.
Councilor Hay.
President, could we ask Mr. Saracen to now give us a total with those reductions? 477, 619 would be about requested, 399, 480 would be the amount allowed by the mayor.
Could you, I have a total of what you've cut thus far. Is that what you're
Okay,
asking?
for that page, could you tell us from the 399, 480 what we've cut?
we ask
Let me just do this. If you don't cut the zoning, which it's $19,003.
Okay, thank you.
So if without the zoning, it's 380, 477. but the zoning has been, I'll follow up with a copy of the ordinance Saturday.
Appreciate that.
Page 6, Building Department, City Hall general expenses, amount requested $105,000, amount allowed by mayor $105,000. Councilor Hay.
Mr. Glanter, we have a energy efficiency program that we adhere to regarding, lights and bulbs and wattage and all that type of thing.
There is no specific program. We do try to put in as efficient lighting as we possibly can. We are in the process, as lights burn out, changing our normal T12 fluorescent lights to a more efficient T10 light. And we use in a lot of our incandescent areas fluorescent lights. In the computers, we request throughout the City Hall that computers are shut down when not in use at the end of the day or on weekends to try to conserve energy. We do shut out all lights at night that aren't necessary. So we do have some type of energy efficiency plan.
Have we contacted our supplier? They'll often do audits and come in and show you ways to conserve.
We have contacted both Unitil and the supplier for the bulbs we do use, and they have given us the most efficient fluorescent bulb and told us how we can change them. In 2008, they will be eliminating the T12 bulbs, so they will no longer be able to purchase that size bulb.
Thank you.
Councilor Conrad.
I think Councilor Hay basically asked the question I was going to ask of, have we done a complete energy audit of our city buildings? These audits are conducted by the utility or by private companies. I would assume private companies would not charge for it, but in the end probably would take a certain percentage of the estimated savings, and I think it would behoove us to have some type of an audit done, because I think we all know that energy prices across the board are going to go down. It's just, that's not in the form of a motion, that's just a suggestion. Thank you.
Anything on page 6, councilors? Councilor.
I'd like the definition for supplies, please. What exactly supplies, $11,000? Supplies? What supplies?
That would be any of the supplies we need to keep the heating and the fuel in place, such as any parts that we would need for the furnace to keep it running through the year, and supplies for the air conditioning unit, such as the changing of the oil, the filters, and other supplies for our heating system, and also for the electricity for any of the bulbs and supplies throughout the City Hall.
Thank you.
Councilor DeSalvatore.
On the energy bills here, electricity, fuel, what buildings does that cover?
On this one here, just City Hall.
Just City Hall? Okay.
Seeing no changes, we'll move on to page 7. Building repair and care expenses. Amount requested, $147,000. Amount allowed by the mayor, $131,000. Questions, comments? Councilor Donnelly.
On the senior center heating fuel, there's been a proposal or people requesting to have a new boiler put in there. And I know it can't come out of your your department, but if we had a new boiler in there, and there is, my understanding, there's a fund with money, the Helmy Fund, and it's only for the senior center building. And there's been a request for more than a year to get a new boiler there, and we received no action from the mayor. If we did, we could substantially reduce our fuel bill and distribute the heat in a much more comfortable manner over there. So I'd like to propose that we lower the amount of fuel money to prod someone to get a new boiler over there.
Is there any reason you know that that money isn't being spent on a new boiler?
I know that we do repairs on that boiler each year, trying to keep it going. It does need replacement, and I'm not sure why the mayor hasn't requested an engineering firm to get involved in having engineering done for the boiler. I know a few years back, I did that for City Hall, and I replaced our original boiler here in City Hall with two efficient boilers that run both on gas and oil, and we switched them back and forth for the lowest price to try to conserve, and we have conserved quite a bit.
My comment is not directed at the
Right.
building commissioner, it's directed at the mayor. My understanding, there's money in a fund, and it's sitting there. I'd like to reduce it from $35,000 to $20,000.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to reduce the senior center heating fuel from $35,000 to
20.
$20,000. Discussion.
Mr. President, can I address someone in the audience?
Sure.
Mr. Walsh, did I see you here? Bill Walsh?
Left.
He was from the senior center. This is more of a question to Councilor Donnelly. I've heard the same thing from Mr. Walsh that you're saying about the boiler at the senior center. And I've heard that monies, they have enough money to replace that boiler, and I've heard that the mayor just hasn't done it. So back to Mr. Gallant. Mr. Gallant, if we had a new boiler there, could we reduce this by that amount of money?
I don't believe so.
What do you think the right figure would be?
Well, I think 35 is low as it is. I would say that 35, even if we did reduce it, we're looking at trying to fine tune it the first year that we put the new boiler in. We would go then back and forth with gas and oil, because we would put a dual boiler in. Gas is more efficient, and we could save at times, especially in the fall, and we're using gas for the hot air unit, which is heating the main hall, the O'Neill Hall. That is where probably a lot of the expense is with the O'Neill Hall. I think that the most we could save with a new boiler in there is that it would be, of course, more efficient and wouldn't be as hot all the time with the steam, that we could probably save about $5,000.
Councilor DiMartino.
My question is, I've heard about the fund, and it was a woman that left the money, and I was wondering how much was in the fund, if that's something that we should know.
I believe it's 67,000, but I'd want to just double check. If anybody has one of my annual reports,
Yes.
if you have it, it doesn't change, because it isn't listed with the other trust funds, but the former city solicitor ruled that that is not an official trust fund, and therefore the interest does not get added to that fund. And if the money is used for a boiler, it would have to come through the council. They would have to approve that related expenditure.
Yes.
So you would see it come in whenever they, if the mayor submits something.
Councilor Connery.
Mr. Gallant, there has been some discussion over the past couple of years of insulating the O'Neill Hall. And there's been some discussions that it has been held up. Can you enlighten us at all on that?
Well, when Jeannie LeMay first had started looking for funds to redo or modernize the O'Neill Hall, it was originally looked at to put a drop ceiling in and to put insulation above that drop ceiling, and then have air conditioning and warm air as the heating system. As the engineers started to review that, they started to see that the type of structure that it is in there, that it would affect the total structure and its historic value of O'Neill Hall. Anything that is done, especially with the CDBG funding, called for the historic to be looked at and to see if anything was going to change in it, and if being a historic on the historic register, that it doesn't change in any great fashion. It was, and many times, anytime we looked at that, it was refused by the historic to use the funds to do any insulating in there. But the engineers also viewed that it has a slate roof, and design and the way the structure is that there would be sweating in between the two areas and possibly cause rot of the rafters and the upper girders going across. So they highly recommended that no insulation be placed above a drop ceiling, or a drop ceiling be put in there, that they designed it so that it would be able to be heated and cooled just the way it is. But it is difficult in a very cold day to try to bring the heat up in that hall with the hot air unit that we have running gas, and it is extremely expensive for just a day or so.
Thank you.
Councilor DeSalvatore?
I'd like to agree with Mike. He's right about the boiler. It's not just the boiler in the main section of the building. We don't have any insulation in the second floor. The system itself is fairly antiquated. A lot of the thermostats have to be replaced. It's more than just upgrading the boiler, it's upgrading the entire system. There is a program through a company like called Train that might be something that we could look into, that would allow us to spend the same amount per year on what we normally would put out for this building, except that the savings would be going to pay off the work done by Train. Again, that's just one solution. But as far as which one of these to cut, I believe it would be the gas bill. The gas bill for O'Neill Hall is around $3,000 a month, and I believe Mr. Gallant would verify that. And that's being used most of the time just for a few people to play cards. As much as we would like to accommodate people, at $3,000 a month, that's pretty rich. That's for the winter months. We could save quite a bit by not heating that room at all. That would have to be something that we would have to push and do that by reducing this amount.
Councilor Boisvert?
Yes, Mr. Gallant, as far as the senior center is concerned, is there any reason why we have to maintain the heat up on the second floor during the winter months?
Well, right now, we're in negotiations with a contract with the veterans to use the entire second floor.
It's my understanding they don't want to go there. But that's your negotiations. But in the meantime, is there any reason why we can't, why we must heat the second floor if it's not being used?
We have tried to put more controls in on the second floor to reduce the amount of steam going up there, but it's pretty much a sort of like gravity-fed steam system where it's difficult to control the amount of heat that goes up there. Even if we shut down all of the units against the wall, we're still going to be getting the heat from the downstairs. We have tried to put in energy-efficient thermostats on all floors and to control those with a PIN number so that nobody can touch or change the temperatures within that area, and that has helped a little, but with that type of steam system, it's really difficult to control it completely shut off.
Have we really investigated thoroughly the possibility of diverting the steam from going upstairs?
We have put a lot into that. You have to remember that that boiler really has to heat up to a certain degree. It's really oversized for the area it is actually heating. It was designed with modines in the main O'Neill Hall to heat both the O'Neill Hall and the upstairs and the first floor area of the original armory. To take out O'Neill Hall completely, which they have done, and capped off those pipes. Now it is totally oversized just for that area that it is heating. And to try to reduce it anymore, that boiler is already running. It needs to come up to a certain temperature in order to get the steam out. And it's running as efficient as it can, but it's way oversized, and that heat has to go somewhere. So it goes to the second floor. We have tried to cut that down, but it's still it will still run to the degree it's running now, even if we cut those pipes and cap them. It has to run to a certain temperature using that fuel. It is oversized for the area it's heating.
Just off the top of your head, I know you wouldn't have these figures, but how much is spent just heating the second floor of that senior center?
That's hard to say.
Ballpark, be fine.
Probably a third of the total cost.
I think it would probably be worthwhile investigating a little bit further. If we can cut 1/3 of our heating bill, that certainly would warrant a little bit more investigation.
Well, I know there is still, even, and I'm sure you have talked to the veterans, but those veterans that we've been negotiating with are anxious to get in there, and we are now working with them to put a lift in the front of the senior center to go to the second floor, and they would like to have that lift in place, according to the veterans, by September, so that they can get upstairs. So if that's the case, right now, to shut off the heat in the upstairs, we would be taking it away from them.
Are the veterans planning on renting that space?
I'm not sure what the agreement is. I don't believe that there's going to be any money transacted between the city and the veterans, but I believe that they do intend to rent the hall periodically for their different events that they have.
Thank you.
Councilor Caddy.
Mr. Glenn, how much, what do you estimate a new boiler would cost? New system?
I believe it would cost well over $100,000 for engineering and installation.
Thank you.
We have a motion seconded on the floor for the fuel to go from 25,000 to 15,000?
35 to 20.
35 to
35 to 20. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in opposition. Councilor Hay.
Yeah, a couple other questions on this page, Mr. Grant. Mike. On the building maintenance other, Mike, spent for 2006 was $4,260. And we're now up to 15. Was there a change there?
in the building maintenance for other, that's in other buildings that we've had, and we've had to do some work in some of the buildings because they haven't been, they've been surplus, they haven't been sold. So what we have had to do in a lot of them is we've had a great amount of vandalism, and we have needed to pay to have them boarded up.
And the building maintenance senior center was $14,320, and we're now at $25,000.
In the senior center, where we had to go up in the maintenance, is that they had went on with a part-time janitor that works jointly with the library, and we needed to get a number of supplies and equipment for him to do the work over at the senior center. And
Okay. Thank you.
Councilor DeSalvatore.
Mr. Gallant, the senior center stood vacant for a while, didn't it?
Excuse me?
The senior center was vacant for a while. O'Neill Hall was unused and unheated.
Correct.
Was there any damage after it was opened up again caused by not being heated?
There was some leaks found, but that could be just normal wear and tear. I can't say that I can attribute it totally to the not being heated.
Were these leaks roof from snow and ice, maybe?
Yes.
Okay, so that has nothing to do with the heat being on or off. With the fact that we know that we're going to save money by turning off the heat, is there anything that keeps us from turning off that heat except for special events? And is it possible we could save up to upwards to $15,000 over a winter by shutting the heat off completely, with the exception of special events for O'Neill Hall?
I believe we could do that.
I'd like to move to have the $25,000 reduced to $10,000 for gas.
That accounts as much as for gas, for electricity too.
Second. I'm not going to talk on the motion till I have a second. Is there a second? I don't hear a second to the motion. Any further on this page? Moving on to page 8. Building expenses. Requested 62,000, allowed 48,000. Councilor DiMartino.
Commissioner, what's the contracted services? What is that?
Contracted services are services that we hire out for, like elevator maintenance, the services of the rental of the copy machine within the building department, the services of cleaning companies to come in and to clean twice a week all of City Hall.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Conry.
This is a general comment and not directed at you, Mr. Gallant. Travel and meetings. I'd like to make a comment here to my colleagues on the council. We are in severe financial straits, as we all know. I would like to see every department's budget reduced to zero on travel and meetings, with the exception of those departments who must be certified. Example, if Mr. Gallant needs credits to be certified as a building inspector, he should be allowed to go to those meetings. If the assessor and his assistant need to be certified and get credits by going to a meeting, they should be allowed to go to those meetings. But I think we need to set the example, including the city council, that we do not go to any, take any travel out of the city or go to any meetings out of the city as a result of the budget situation. That's just a comment, it's not a motion, but I will make a motion at this point to reduce the travel and meetings budget to 0 and have each department head make a request through the mayor to the city council for an appropriation for meetings and travel.
Second that. Second that.
Motion made and seconded to zero out the line item for travel and meetings. Any discussion? Councilor DeSalvatore.
Speaking on the motion, just like to know, what would that entail? What kind of meetings would that be?
These are just minimal. All of our inspectors have to be certified, both electrical inspectors certified each year. The plumbing inspector has to be certified each year. I have to have a minimum of 15 hours of both seminars and accreditation to keep my certification, along with my local inspector. The travel, we use our own vehicles, so the travel is minimal. This is basically just used for those events. The average event that we go to for our keeping up our credits is in Amherst each year, where we go to the state's the Mass Municipal Inspectors Association puts on a 10-hour credit course at UMass Amherst, which runs approximately $300 per person.
And these are mandatory?
These are mandatory.
Councilor
Thank you.
Connery.
Just a comment on that. I had the opportunity to speak to a person the other day who was a municipal employee of the school department, now retired. And the person told me that every time that she went to a meeting, she paid for it out of her own pocket. She was not reimbursed. We can take people and have them certified, and maybe next year they're going to go and work somewhere else, and I'm not talking about you, Mr. Gallant. They're going to go and work somewhere else, and the city of Fitchburg has paid for their certification or for their licenses. It's the same thing that's happening, and we're not to it yet, with the police department budget. We've put on these officers. If we lay these officers off, we spent over $100,000 to train them, and I could just about guarantee that maybe half of them won't come back when there's a recall, and the city or town that gets them does not have to pay for training. So that is one of my reasons for cutting out this, but it's the will of the council. It's only my personal opinion.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? What? It's getting crazy. Councilor Connery.
Yes. I really haven't been to Romano's Market to get my knife sharpened, but I'd like to make a motion and use the same theory that I used for travel and meetings to zero out dues and subscriptions in all budgets in the city.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion. Councilor Hay.
Don't have a problem with it, Mr. President, just asking that that motion will then carry to every department on that
Well-
line item, or are we doing it just for this one right now?
Just for this one right now.
Okay. Thank you.
Any further discussion?
Got to ask the question, just exactly what does the dues and subscriptions entail?
Dues and subscription entails that we are a member of the ICC, the International Code Commission, and the Mass Municipal Inspectors Association, to pay for our dues to those associations so that we can keep up to date with the national codes.
And is that the bare minimum being asked for?
That is the bare minimum. This is not a fat, there's no fat on this budget.
What happens if you lose those dues and subscriptions? What do we lose?
We're going to lose a lot of information that we now acquire from the International Code Commission for updates in supplies and equipment used on construction jobs and their evaluations.
Thank you. May I ask Councilor Connery, are we asking them to come to us when they need to pay that, or are we looking to eliminate this entirely?
Well, I would think that we would have to ask them to come to us, but on the other hand, if I may, Mr. President, can we not obtain a lot of this information through the membership in the Mass Municipal Association or the National League of Cities and Towns?
Not without paying dues to that particular association. These are separate associations from the Mass Municipal Association that deals with inspectors specifically. And Mass Municipal is not a member of the International Code Commission. This is for evaluation of products and application for construction.
Do we know for a fact that the Mass Municipal Association does not have membership in that, or they cannot obtain information for us?
And we don't, and I don't pay dues to the Mass Municipal.
I believe that the city does, though.
There are
The city
certain
is a member.
departments that do, yes.
Saw a hand over here. Councilor Caddy.
Could we see the receipts from last year? Could you provide those for us? You have them with you?
Dues and subscriptions. To the International Code Council, the amount expended was $817.66.
Is there others also?
The other one is the Plumbing Commission. That was $260.
Is that for codes also?
For codes was $135.08 for the, and that was with the NFPA of $20 for that code.
Councilor Clark.
Mr. President, when it comes throughout this whole budget under travel and meetings and dues and subscriptions, I ask, is it essential? Is it indispensable?
I would say with the state changing their codes to the new international codes, April we had changed to the 7th edition of the International Residential Code, and by this September we're looking at going to the full international code, it is. It's definitely a plus, because with membership, at any time, if we have any questions at any code matters, we can contact them through email.
I don't think it's essential, I mean.
You don't want?
And I go the other way, so.
Thank you.
You can't toss a coin on something that a department, I mean, we're not going to do Mr. Gallant's job, so.
We're talking about.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? A lot in opposition. Councilor Hay.
Could you explain the automobile line item, Mr. Glant?
The automobile, the line item of $10,000? That is for the repairs of the 5 vehicles that we use. In the 5 vehicles, they are 1996 vintage, and they need a lot of repairs. That also includes the gas and the just regular maintenance.
Can you tell me what portion of that is for gas, approximately?
About $5,000 of it.
Any of those vehicles go home at night?
Yes, they do.
How many?
They all do.
Can you tell me how far they travel?
Yes, probably the total mileage of all the vehicles would be approximately roughly 30, about 36 miles round trips
Total?
total.
Thank you.
Entertaining motions on automobiles?
Mr. President?
If I could, Mr. President, one other question, I'm sorry, as a follow-up. 36 miles, that's a day round trip total, is that correct?
That's correct.
Mr. President?
Councilor Caddy.
Could I request,
So probably 2.5 gallons?
the other departments had returned the questionnaire about the vehicles. I didn't get one from the building department. Could we get that?
It's in the city clerk's.
It is,
office.
okay.
It does have that.
Did anybody else get one from building? I didn't get one from building.
It's supposed to be passed on.
Okay.
Councilor Hay, did you have a
I'm
follow-up?
done, thank you.
Any further discussion on page 8?
Total cut, please, sir. What's the total cut on that page?
2,500.
1,500. The other 1,000 didn't pass.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Moving on to page 9, building traffic signal expenses. Requested $48,500, allowed $40,000. Councilor Caddy?
Mr. Glant, the traffic signals maintenance in 2006 was $9,700. Now we're up to $20,000. Could you explain how we got that high?
Because we have a number of new traffic signals that have went in the past few years. We had just had North Street put in, and we had the lights changed at the intersection of Oliver and Main Street. And we have had significant changes at the Kmart lights, where we have needed to service that quite regularly because of a number of problems there. So that's why the increase in the maintenance was for those new lights and the changes that had taken place down on the Main Street section from the Moran Square lights at Lunenburg and Summer, all the way up to the lights over the bridge at Water and Laurel.
In 2007, we spent 20. 2006, we spent 97. Are you anticipating things like that to happen in the next year?
If we have to take on any more lights, I'm not anticipating that. There was also 2 more sets of lights put on with school lights that we had to put up. One for the high school, the traffic warning lights up there, and also the lights at Bemis and Summer Street were 2 new sets of lights. So we had to increase the maintenance. I don't see of any new lights, any more lights coming in.
Could we reduce this a little bit?
Well, we've had a pretty tough year with the Kmart lights. That's cost us most of our maintenance supply with problems that we've had with that controller and the spikes, and that took up a lot of my overtime too, going in at night because the lights would go on flash. To reduce this would really put a lot of our maintenance in jeopardy.
Okay, thank you.
We look at trying to buy new controllers each year. It's hard to say what's going to happen with the traffic lights, especially during the summer months. We just had a lightning strike on the controller at Newsnock, which we had to change just the other night. And you can never tell when one's going to get hit. So the cost of the year could go up or down.
Thank you.
Councilor Hay.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mike, I'm disturbed when I hear you refer to them as the Kmart lights. Other lights are described as the, Oliver Street lights and the Summer Street or the Lunenburg lights. Are we required to supply those lights for that property? We don't have lights at Market Basket on John Fitch Highway. We don't have lights at the new Market Basket on Water Street. If there's costs associated with it, and we're providing a service for a business property, and we don't do it for other business properties, why aren't we charging that out to them?
Well, I should have, rather than call it the Kmart lights, it's just for its location is why I say Kmart lights. It is a very dangerous intersection of the off-ramp to Route 2, the South Street intersection, the Merriam Ave intersection, and the Wayland Street intersection. Those intersections are extremely dangerous, and it isn't just the traffic coming out of that mall.
Was there a light there when the Route 2 was there, and Wayland Street was there, and Merriam Ave was there, and Kmart Plaza wasn't there?
No, there wasn't.
So what you're telling me is the addition of the Kmart Plaza brought it to somebody's attention that that intersection was now dangerous enough that we determined we needed to put a street light there?
No, Counselor, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that that intersection has become very busy with a great amount of traffic coming from Leominster coming through. It is a main thoroughfare now, Wayland Street, and it's not just being used for the mall.
Now you've gone even another step, and you've explained to me that not just the mall, the people coming from Leominster, we need to supply a light for. Why didn't Leominster put a light on their side of the plaza?
That would have been great.
Where you going, Councilor? You want to shut the light off?
If it's costing us and others are being benefited by
They
it.
did pay for the change in the controller and the change in the left lane exit out of the mall. Leominster did pay for that. We did not have anything to do with that portion of it. We did work with the state in installing those lights there, mainly because of the off-ramp to Route 2 in the South Street and Wayland intersection.
Thank you.
Is there, you kept saying that because the lights went flashing in the middle of the night in Kmart, we had to pay overtime.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a reason why we can't make a decision that we send somebody out there at 8:30 in the morning to fix those lights instead of 2 o'clock in the morning?
When a light goes on flash, I get paged by the police department because they feel that those intersections are extremely dangerous. Most of the times that the light at the Whalen and South Street intersection have gone on flash, there have been accidents there because of that. So we do go out, no matter when it is, to put them back on and put them into service.
I think sometimes we need to make a little bit more of a sound business decision in that case.
We have in other areas, that is a dangerous intersection.
Okay. Councilor Conway.
Because this is a public safety issue, I would move that we accept the $40,000 allowed by the mayor in the 2008 fiscal year budget.
Second.
Second.
Motion made and second to accept page 9. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, Mr. Gallant. Take it.
Deland, it's Miller time.
Yeah, sure is.
The advertising for beer companies on council.
Moving on to the IDC, Mr. Curley. How are you this evening?
Thank you. That's it. Councilors?
Page 31 in your budgets, councilors. Industrial Development Commission, amount requested, $126,972. Amount allowed by the mayor, $126,972. Questions, concerns, motions? Councilor Cruz.
Pay raise from 64 to 68, is that part of negotiation that occurred between the mayor and executive director? 4,000 plus, give or take?
I guess I'd really just like to know what the dollar value is for the extra day
Get it back.
on $64,844.
The amount that needs to be funded, if there's no change in the salary, is $65,094.
I move that the executive director's salary be set at $65,094.
Second.
Motion made and second to reduce the salary of the executive director, $65,095. Any,
It's a reduction of $2,975. I'll figure it.
any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
The head
Councilor
clerk position, is that a union position?
Question?
Is the head clerk a union position?
She may not be in the union, but her salary is based on the clerical union contract.
So she's not in the union?
I believe, do you know, Dan?
I don't know.
Is this a position that was moved over from one department to another?
I don't believe so. I think it was always city position.
Okay. Councilor Caddy.
We'll know soon enough. Reduced it back to 45,396 plus the difference in the day.
Second.
Second.
If we could have that amount, sir.
So at $873 a week, it's $45,571.
Motion made and seconded to reduce the head clerk's salary to $45,571. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any other questions on that page? Councilor Hay.
Longevity. Is that a bargained item?
Yeah, that's, I believe that's for the one position, and that's over 15 years of service would be that.
But it's really, if that person isn't covered by the union, then the longevity is,
That's also set by ordinance also, for
Okay.
the not, so it is
Thank you.
firm.
Counselor Caddy.
What's the downtown coordinator's salary? It shows that there's 10,000 here, but isn't there money's coming from other places?
Yeah, I don't have that. I think it's split between, it is split between planning and IDC.
The downtown coordinator made $30,112 last year.
Again, please?
$30,112.
Is there a increase in her salary this year, do we know?
I do not believe so.
I don't believe so. I haven't seen anything indicating an increase to that salary yet.
So we'll have to go to other budgets to find out where the rest of the money is?
CDBG.
You have
Actually,
to
that's-
check with block grant.
I believe
Block grant.
it's block grant.
We could
And it may
confirm
be
that.
previous year block grant that's already been approved. So I don't know if there's anything new in front of you this year for that.
Counselor Boisvert.
How long has the downtown coordinator position been how long have we had this position?
This line has been here, this is the second year.
It's the second year.
Second year.
I would like to make a motion to reduce the downtown coordinator's position completely.
Seeing no second, Counselor DiMartino.
Is that a full-time job or a part-time job?
Part-time.
Part-time position.
It's a part,
20 hours a week, yes.
so it's 30,000 for part-time.
Correct. She's paid part-time. She's certainly...
No, I'm just saying, it's
Yes,
a part-time
she's
job,
paid-
it's not a
she's paid as
full-time.
part-time position.
Okay.
Counselor Caddy.
I'd like to reduce this 10,000 to zero and revisit this when we go to the planning department and see if we can get that 10,000 out of planning.
Second.
Motion made and second. Speaking on the motion, I'll speak first, I guess. The work that the downtown coordinator does can't always be funded out of CDBG because not all of the activity that she does can be related to creating jobs and micro businesses and the things that are surrounded in the CDBG. So
I didn't ask for CDGB, I said planning.
that's where the rest of the money comes from, CDBG.
Right. But let's visit planning's budget to get the $10,000.
Okay. Any further discussion on the motion? Counselor yeah.
Thank you, Mr. President.
I'm losing my score sheet.
I just want everyone to look, and it's a part-time position. I'd like to see how many other people in a part-time position or a full-time position put much time and effort into that job. And one part of our income, and Mr. Saracen can tell us, the hotel tax comes in, and we're supposed to be supporting tourism or anything to attract people to the downtown. So it is a funded position through a tax, not necessarily associated with the people of Pittsburgh. So just consider that when you vote.
Counselor Hay.
although I think Councilor Caddy raises a good question whether it could be fully funded through the planning department. I'm going to oppose this, wait till we hear from planning, and if something can be arranged, then I may support it. Thank you.
Counselor Caddy.
Just so that no one misunderstands me, there isn't an ounce in me that wants to reduce her pay. We get a good deal on that one. we need to find dollars. There's $10,000 sitting here, and I suspect, I had a conversation tonight about some monies coming in from Comcast Cable that went directly to the planning, which is almost $100,000. I think we should be looking at some of our bigger budgets to carry things like this. This budget isn't that big. We certainly can take the $10,000 from here and get it somewhere else. Not to touch the position. Please don't misunderstand me. And if Ellen's watching, Ellen, that's not the point. I think we can find this in planning. I think we can find the $10,000.
Just, my comment is that we have private investors, starting at Market Basket, moving down to CDC, the Straits, what's going on over at Pritchard Towers. All of this money is being invested by private industry to build residential units, restaurant units, all of these things in our downtown area. And we're going to, as a municipality, take out $10,000 out of a budget that's earmarked towards a downtown coordinator to help that effort. I mean, I think that line item should be a $70,000 program, okay? The private industry is doing its share to make Fitchburg what it's going to be despite us. Let's not cut off our nose to spite our face. Councilor DiMartino.
When we started this budget tonight, we said it was going to be painful. Every employee in the city of Fitchburg is valuable, everybody. And we can't let personalities or positions get in the way. We're here to cut the budget, and that has to be fair across the board for everybody. And we can't make any pets, I use the word pets, out of anybody. I totally agree with trying to find this $10,000 somewhere else. And nobody is saying that the person that's got this job is not doing a great job. But we're here to make some hard decisions, and I think that we should just keep focused and keep going and doing what we all feel is right. Thank you.
Councilor Hay.
Thank you, Mr. President. If I might, in response to Councilor DiMartino's comments, while I agree with her wholeheartedly that we need to take individuals and personalities out of it, if we could change our wording from saying, cutting the budget. We're not cutting the budget, we're balancing the budget. We have an imbalanced budget. So we're not cutting it, we're balancing it. That's our responsibility. The mayor gave us an imbalanced budget. If the mayor had given us a balanced budget, we might not have to do anything to it. So I think this council, and I think that the folks in this hall, and I hope that the folks at home understand that differential. We're balancing something that was given to us that was out of whack. And that's why we're trying to find money. Thank you.
Mr. President,
Motion made and seconded to eliminate $10,000 from the
Mr. President, can I
downtown
speak to this
coordinator's
at all?
position.
Can I speak to
President.
this at all?
Absolutely.
Okay. I just want to, make everyone aware that this $10,000 allows Ellen to go and do work in general. The CDBG funds that are there, okay, allow her only to work with micro enterprise. She may work with 6 to 8 small businesses a quarter, but it does not let her work on small business problems in general. It does not let her work on parking solutions for the downtown, for promoting the cultural assets downtown. It doesn't allow her to do that. And I just want to let people know that this $10,000 runs through this budget, but is administered through the planning anyway. So this $10,000 goes to the planning office that then pays 1/4 of the salary, so that as she does other activities that have expenses, the $30,000 in CDBG money helps pay her expenses on some of the things that she does. If we take this out, or if it ends up not coming back in somewhere else, that is going to be a great loss for downtown Fitchburg in general. She will still be there to be able to help the Toy Museum with 2 employees come to downtown. but it does not let her work on promoting the downtown in general. And knowing Ellen, she probably would do that anyway. But I'm talking about being fair to Ellen DeGeronimo also.
The position, please. The position. You're not bringing up people.
I'm sorry, the position.
Exactly. Councilor Hay.
Just like to clarify my comment. Once we find $760,000, anything we do after that may be referred to as a cut. Thank you.
Councilor Connery.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman. This is a council of the whole committee. If we take that $10,000 out prior to taking a formal vote on the budget, can we put it in? Because I know that we can only reduce, we cannot add.
We would just reverse our decision before we make the decision on our council as a whole meeting,
Thank you.
committee as a whole. Councilor
I
Hay.
was just going to say, Mr. President, any actions we've taken tonight are just amending the budget. We can re-amend it before we take a final vote on the amended budget.
Councilor Caddy.
I just want everybody to refer to the planning's budget and add the numbers up compared to the Industrial Development Commission's, and it's a huge difference in budgets. I'm merely trying to take the money out of this budget and send it over to planning, not to CDGB, to planning, because I think that planning should be planning for Main Street. Why take it out of this budget? We should be able to find it out of theirs. But we're probably spending too much time on this one. So I'll give it up if you want to, but if we vote on it tonight, we can put it back when we want to on the final budget. But in answer to Councilor Hayes' statement, if we get over to the $760,000, well, maybe we can put a little money in the rainy day account that we haven't done for a few years. So I don't call that a cut. I think we ought to stick to business here and do what we got to do. Thank you.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in opposition.
Mr. President?
Yes.
Did that pass?
Yes. Moving on to page 32.
Mr. President,
Yes.
could you give us, or Mr. Saracen, the total cut of page 31?
Yep.
$15,272.
Thank you.
Industrial Development Commission expenses, amount requested $25,000, amount allowed by the mayor $24,000. Councilors, Councilor Connery.
Make a motion to remove $3,100 from travel and meetings.
Second.
Motion made and second to reduce the travels and meetings by $3,100. Any discussion? Mr. Curley, can you give us a little explanation on travel and meetings?
Sure. I do travel to Boston to represent the city on occasion, certify projects down in front of the EACC. Those meetings are held in Boston, and the representative of the city is required to go, and I'm the representative that handles that. Some of the other travel, I believe, I'm a board of director on the Mass Economic Development Council. They meet quarterly throughout the state, different regions of the state, because it's a statewide economic development organization. At those events, we have people like Secretary O'Connell from the state, and you get to have some pretty good dialogue with them and meet with them, and the networking that goes on there with the state organizations, and a lot of the programs that they have, you really need some political clout. You need to have met people face to face when you're applying for these monies from the state. So that this would encapsulate, those type of things also. I mean, I'd be required to go down to Boston for a certified project, otherwise the city would not be approved, and that's part of my job, so I'd do that regardless of whether I was reimbursed or not. But it is part of my job to do that.
Do you have
It's not,
access,
it's not a luxury, pardon me?
do you have access to a city-owned vehicle?
I do not.
So you use...
I travel in my own vehicle to meetings throughout the state.
So I think maybe a little different situation. Any further discussion? Councilor DeSalvatore.
It's my personal opinion I'd like to share here. I think, although we're trying to tighten our budget, we need our representation to stay out there. We need that networking. And this is one that I'd like to see stay in place.
Councilor DiMartino.
Do you get mileage for your car?
I do.
How much a mile?
Honestly, I don't know what that reimbursement is. It's whatever's allowed. Dick may know.
Statewide, citywide, it's based on the federal mileage
Yep.
per ordinance. It's 48.5 cents.
That's only when I leave
Per
town.
mile.
That's not within the town. That's when I
know
leave.
that.
Only when I leave the town to go somewhere for the city.
So if you go to Boston in your car, you get reimbursed anyway for travel?
It comes out of this portion of the budget, is that correct?
Yes, you submit for
Or
mileage.
it comes out of that money?
So it comes out of this money. This money reimburses my travel to
Okay.
Boston and back.
Okay.
And parking, if I go to Airwife, that parking, if I have to get to a meeting where I have to go to a parking lot,
Yeah.
and in Boston, they don't give those away.
Well, maybe when we get the fast train, you'll be able to go on.
That would be nice. If I could get back. I can get there.
That's what
I
I'm
just need to
saying.
get back.
Yeah.
Councilor Caddy.
I'm inclined to keep this, but I would like to see an accounting of it.
Yeah.
I mean, we just have a figure of $3,100. We don't know what it is,
Yeah,
what we
and there
spend.
is some out-of-state travel as part of the Northeast Economic Development Association. They have a yearly conference that I go to, and it varies. It's 13 states in the Northeast. So some years I don't travel very far, some years I do.
I'd just like to see it on a
that-
piece of paper and itemized so that we know what we're voting on.
That would come with the travel chief.
Councilor Tran.
Thank you, Mr. President. In this case, I think it's important that we do keep a traveling expense account for Mr. Curley. He is correct that he's been to Boston, because I've met the same people that he has met on different occasions, and it's important that we do have representation in Boston. I do like to ask Councilor Conway to amend his motion to at least reduce the amount and not to delete the whole amount. Thank you, Mr. President.
Councilor Conway.
Based on the explanation given by Mr. Curley, I would be willing to amend that and reduce it by $1,600. However, I still feel strongly that, based on our conditions, we should not be doing any out-of-state travel, period. So I will amend that
To $1,500.
$1,500.
Second.
Motion made and second to amend the motion to $1,600. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion as amended. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Just a question on photocopy leases. Is that,
We do dues and prescriptions.
is that shared with the redevelopment authority? The
It is not.
expenses?
It is not. Office supplies, papers, things like that, we each pay for our own, and they actually do share the cost of the ink cartridges. The photocopy lease is done through the city. It's the second, I believe we're on the second year of a 3-year lease. They also do not charge us rent for being down there, and we don't reimburse anything for electricity. It's a cooperative effort. It's to have us in the same location. When someone comes in, they may not know which organization they need to talk to, so by being co-located, it makes it much easier for the consumer. demand the customer to come in and get the help that they need. So it is a little bit of give and take with free rent, free electricity, things like that, and they have use of the photocopier, and I believe we own the fax machine and the telephones also.
Must be getting a lot easier to discern where they're looking for, because it appears through the last presentation we got from the redevelopment authority that if you're not there to rent space in the Putnam Street building, then the business is elsewhere. Is there any work being done for the redevelopment or the urban renewal program from that office at this time?
I can't speak to what the board has decided or what Tom's next project is. I know that he was told to focus on the bottom line with Putnam Place, filling that up. The urban renewal plan lays out other things that need to be done. Building came down on Snow Street this year. I mean, there are other things that are happening. Just, a lot of them aren't sexy, but there are things that are going on. They're putting together RFP for some property that they own and things like that. But again, when they need help, when Tom needs help, he asks me. When he doesn't, I don't stick my nose into what he's doing if he doesn't need help, and vice versa.
Okay. Any other? Councilor Cruz?
Thank you, Council President. Dues and subscription, could you define that for us?
Yes, it's both newspapers. It's a downtown idea exchange that we get twice a month, that we actually get 2 copies of, but we only pay for one. Helen gets one, I get one. And it's just, again, it's ideas of what people have done in other places. It's a way to learn. We referred to something that was in here when we looked at the parking problems and how to make the lower Main Street parking garage more customer-friendly. So it's got value. Is it essential? Probably not. And then the dues are my dues to the Mass Economic Development Council and the Northeast Economic Development Association.
Less the literature, what is your current dues?
I don't have that broken up.
I make a motion to cut the 1,500 to 750.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to cut dues and subscriptions from 1,500 to 750. Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Councilor Clark.
Actually, Councilor Cruz took care of it, thank you.
Councilor DiMartino.
Councillor Cruz took care of it.
Good job, Councilor Cruz. Councilor Salvatore, did you...
Believe it or not, Councilor Cruz took care of it.
Anything else on those pages? Councilor Donnelly.
I'm going to start on the telephones. Do you have a cell phone?
No.
Does anyone
I
in
use
the
my
town-
own cell phone.
Does anyone, so this
This is
bill
strictly
here is-
telephone in the office down at Putnam Place.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Curley.
Thank you.
Councilors, we're moving on to page 36 and 37 of the library. Mrs. Waring?
Mr. President,
Yes.
were we going to get a total reduction there on that page?
$2,350.
What a raise there.
Thank you.
Can you add it on your own?
Just wanted to make sure.
I'm sorry? 2,350.
Since you brought the most people with you tonight,
Travel.
36.
we're ready for you. You're ready for us. Good evening. Library, personal services, amount requested, $759,568. Amount allowed by the mayor, $759,568. Councilors, Councilor Caddy.
On the chief librarian, Mr. Saracen, what would that figure be from the July 1st to June 30th, 2007.
At the
Plus the-
1317, it would be $68,748.
Make a motion to fund 68,748.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to go chief librarian's line item at $68,748. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Mr.
Right down the
President,
line.
if I may interrupt, I'd like to make a statement before we go any further.
Absolutely.
I think it'll help clarify a lot of what we're going to be talking about. The budget you have in front of you is within less than $1,000 of the library maintaining its certification. If any cuts are made greater than $755, our certification is in jeopardy. Our library certification depends on the three biggest factors that we have to consider. Number one, it's called the Municipal Appropriation Requirement. It's known as the MAR. The MAR states that our municipal appropriation must, the average of the previous three municipal appropriations must increase by 2.5% for us to maintain an MAR. Secondly, we are required to be open 63 hours per week. Thirdly, we are required to expend 13% of our operating budget on new materials. So why is certification important? Can we live without it? Can you cut more than $755 from this budget? If our library is not certified, first of all, we would forfeit all of our state aid, which averages $73,000 a year. Second, no resident of Fitchburg would be able to borrow anything from nearly every public library in the state. That means if our copy of a book on the summer reading list is checked out or not available, you will be buying it for your high school student. Because despite the fact that Leominster built this beautiful building, Leominster will deny borrowing privileges to every resident of Fitchburg if we don't maintain our certification. Is a waiver possible? In fact, the library did receive a waiver because they did not meet the MAR requirement a few years ago. That waiver is a very lengthy and detailed process. The mayor himself said he would do everything possible to avoid going through that again. Also, we had a waiver a few years ago. The number of waivers is limited in the state. The fact that we had one a few years ago may not work to our favor to get another one. The state limits the number of waivers. The requirement of 13% on new materials and the requirement that we are open 63 hours a week is somewhat flexible. We could still maintain our certification and reduce those two figures by a small amount. If we reduce our hours and the amount we spend on new materials to 80% of the requirement, our state aid is cut in half. We need every dollar we receive in state aid. Our average award is $73,000. So far this year, we have spent $59,890 in state aid. Last year, despite the fact that we averaged $73,000 a year in state aid, we spent $101,423 in state aid. It carries over year to year. Reducing state aid is simply not a good idea. With this in mind, during FY07, we lost 6 employees. The number of employees you see on that bottom line is reduced from 6 from the previous year. Their combined weekly hours was 108.5. To get to this FY08 budget, we are losing another 2 employees whose total hours is 62.5 hours. That's 171 hours per week in 1 year that we're down. My salary, I was hired with a contract in April of '06. It stipulates in my contract that my first step increase would occur July 1st, '07. The numbers on that salary grid are dependent, I'm not in the union, I'm dependent, Dick would talk about that, on the manager's contract, and those numbers are still under negotiation. The reason that number was submitted was because that was the number recommended by the auditor's office. We can talk about the personnel line first, or I can continue with expenses.
I just have one question. When we're talking about our maintenance of effort and state aid, is that in reference to expenses, or is that in relation to salaries and expenses?
Expenses.
So
State aid is added, it's transferred from the state aid account into the expense budget, depending on shortages in our city budget.
But when you say we can't reduce the budget by more than $719, are you
Total.
talking about page 2?
No,
Or
total.
page 1 and 2?
Total. Page 1 and 2. Cannot be reduced more than $755.
So the state tells, all right, never mind. Counselor Hay.
Question was answered by your explanation. Thank you, Mr. President.
Counselor Caddy.
I'm going to finish what you started. So the state's going to tell us how much money we have to spend, and we're going to spend it all in raises. That's what we're doing, because we're in a financial mess. But you just tell us the state is going to force us into accepting these pay raises. But every other department that isn't covered by this is going to take a hit.
The municipal appropriation requirement does not say the money has to be spent for raises or not for raises. The raises the employees are getting is purely contractual. They are now entering the last year of their contract.
Mr. President, we just went through 2 budgets, and we hit them. But on this one, the second this becomes unfair, it's a wash. The second we can't touch a department, it's unfair.
I think the thing that complicates it is if we cut it back, we lose the $73,000, and then we lose that certification. And that's what we're trying to prevent. Once a library loses that, I mean, your local residents really do not have access to a truly public library. They're restricted as to what they can take out based on what you have on the shelves. And although everybody's turning to the internet, there are many, many families in Fitchburg that don't have access to a computer, or if they do, they're broken. They're not up to date or current. So those 2 factors are critical. Every library, every public library strives so hard to maintain those 2 ingredients.
Right now, we're striving to keep the library open. Counselor Hay.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you for your explanation. I am concerned about losing the $73,000 in state aid. I am concerned about keeping our library open and being certified. While at the same time, I understand Councilor Councilor Caddy's concern about differentiating one department head from another when we're going through this process. If the minimum that can be cut from the combination of the two pages is $750, I think we should try to find some way to cut $750 from the total of the 2 pages, so we then stay certified and allow the best service to go to the residents, but change the allocations that the mayor made. I know we can't reassign any money, so maybe we need to see if the mayor would resubmit this one portion of the budget with those changes, so that the amount stays, so it's only cut $750, but that personnel monies get shifted over to the second page so that we can accomplish both of those, what we're trying to do. Thank you.
Councilor DiMartino.
Everything is subject to appropriations in life, and this is subject to appropriations. Where does that come in your contracts? you know, when you make a deal, you say, well, everything is subject to appropriations. If the appropriation is not there, then nothing happens. Am I correct? In other words, like, we're in crisis, and the library is part of that crisis right now. And the state tells us one thing, but the state's not giving us the money to help you. And this is totally unfair to the rest of the people that we're going to bring before us tonight. But there is no money. I mean, this budget is not balanced. We just don't have it. So we need to look into what the state laws are, and we need to really maybe take this off tonight and revisit this and come back. But if there's no money, there's no money, regardless of what the state tells us. It's like No Child Left Behind. They come in with a great program, but they don't give you the money to run it. This is what's happening here. So the library will have to take the hit like everybody else. I don't know how we're going to work it out, but it's not going to be fair to the rest of the people. Thank you very much.
Councilor Tran.
Thank you, Mr. President. And you mentioned that reducing the final line item by more than $730, right?
$755.
$750, give or take, that would decertify a library. Is reducing or eliminating the salary raises a factor in decertification?
It's the total municipal.
It's the total.
Appropriation.
So to be
right.
fair with
It
all
doesn't
city
matter.
employees,
Right.
we can eliminate the salary increases and spread those amount to other expenses.
You could, except that the staff is under contract. They have an agreement that is still in effect. So their raises are still, they're still in an active grid. They still have 1 year left in their contract.
Okay, I would yield the floor to the auditor for that explanation.
Yeah, it's like the situation with the clerical group. They're in the middle of after the if the first year of a contract is ratified and funded, then the city is bound by the future years of those contracts. So, like the head clerk, that's fixed. All of the positions are fixed. I think the only position would be the chief librarian. However, as she's indicated, she has a separate contract with the mayor that allowed her to go up a step only after 1 year of service. Is that correct?
Yeah, I was hired in April.
Right. So typically it's 2 years every other year, and this also this does include the cost of living that the mayor has proposed for the administrators and specialty skills group, as well as the department heads. So whether or not that, I think I would have to defer to legal counsel as far as whether or not the city is bound by that contract the mayor has with the chief librarian.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you.
Councilor Boisvert.
I just need a little clarification here. As far as your state certification, is this hinging on the fact of these salary increases as well?
No, the state certification, the biggest component is that municipal appropriation. It's the bottom line, what we get from the city. How it's divided up among the expenses and whatnot, they don't have anything to say about. But it's just the staff that's under contract.
So if we were to reduce the salary increases, would we lose our certification?
Yes.
Very strange. Thank you.
Because it would
You
be
would,
more.
you wouldn't as long as you put the money into the
Yeah.
expense budget.
True.
If you took 10,000 out of this budget, you would have to put all but 750 into your expense. The total has to, is $1,035,000 or $1,085,000?
$1,083,213 is our bottom line.
So it's $1,082,500. That has to be the total, thereabouts.
$1,083,000.
Okay.
Right.
Well, given the condition of the library and the great needs of the library, wouldn't that make more sense? To put that whatever we're supposed to be increasing our salaries, to be putting it towards the running of the facility.
I have taken steps to do that. This expense budget is higher than last year's. We have reduced payroll accordingly.
Thank you.
Counselor Connery.
A general comment here. On one hand, the state is dictating to us minimum expenditure for the library. And on the other hand, the State Department of Revenue has issued a warning to the city to clean its house up, get its act in order. There seems to be a little clash among state agencies there. I understand your point about the entire budget and losing the state aid and the decertification, but if we lose the state aid, can we make up that $73,000 in the reductions to the submitted budget by the library? And will that still take us out of the ballpark as far as being certified?
The Mass Board of Library Commissioners would not remove the state aid grant of approximately $73,000 without removing our certification first.
Thank you.
Counselor Clark.
Thank you, Mr. President. First, could I have what MAR stands for?
Municipal Appropriation Requirement.
Thank you. Current hours at the library?
66 per week.
66, and the minimum is
63.
My only other question was about Sundays and the line item for Sunday wages, which right now stands at $12,434.
Which is significantly reduced from last year.
Are most libraries open on Sundays?
No, we are required to be open 63 hours per week. We don't have to be open on Sunday, but we're open 4 hours on Sunday. You can cut 3. We don't think we should be open for 1 hour.
Are people paid at the regular same rate on Sundays?
The reason the Sunday wages is reduced significantly was a negotiation with the Staff Association. They have in the past been paid time and a half to work on Sunday. This negotiation for this budget, the staff has agreed to not be paid, but to accrue time at time and a half. So in other words, it would be like another day of the week, and they could get Monday off if they work Sunday. In other words, they will not be paid at time and a half. They won't get their weekly full-time salary plus Sunday anymore, and they have agreed to this.
Do enough people go to the library on Sunday to make it worthwhile opening? I'm talking about energy costs and so forth. Do you have to, does everything have to get fired up for just 4 hours? Are we better off extending and having it open an extra hour during the week instead of having it open for a day?
They have done that in the past, closed on Sunday, opened earlier every day, but when you open 15 minutes earlier in the morning to make up 1 hour a week, it just doesn't pay. It just doesn't accomplish anything. Sunday is a very good service to the city. It also is part of our Sunday Performing Arts series, a well-established cultural program in the city, well-attended, has been in place since the 70s. The library is busy on Sunday. It warrants being open on Sunday. I wouldn't recommend it, and we wouldn't save anything on the heating or air conditioning, because when it does operate, there's no thermostat control anywhere in the building anyway, so it wouldn't save much.
Do you have any data
24/7.
on amount of people coming in the library during the week?
We do have numbers. They are older at this point. We did have what they call a gate counter in place at one point. It doesn't work anymore, so we don't keep those numbers up to date. We could estimate, and I'd have to look them up because I don't remember.
Number of books leaving. Do you have anything like that?
Our circulation hovers around 145,000 items a year,
Pretty steady.
which is steady, very steady, and slowly increasing, as a matter of fact. Slowly. But it has gone up in the last year.
Thank you.
Wishes? I guess. Councilor Hay?
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Saracen, is the head librarian and the chief of police the only two individuals with individual contracts with the mayor? Do we have anybody else?
No, from what I know, the airport manager, I would say more recent hires have contracts, so,
Recent as in the current administration?
I would think so. Like the deputy water, deputy wastewater commissioners,
So department heads that have been here for
BW Commissioner
an
May.
department heads that have been here for an extended time don't have a contract.
Right.
It seems to me that the first question we need asked is through the city solicitor as to whether the contracts that the mayor has entered into are binding and we're obligated to those amounts. If we are, there's not going to be a lot that we can do here.
Yep.
If we're not, then the second question is, would the mayor resubmit the library budget with a reduction from the personnel side that would satisfy us regarding the cut to the department head, so it would be equal with the other ones, and put that money into the maintenance side so that we could achieve the amount we need to get to keep certified and get the state money. So I'd move, well, I guess it's a form of a motion, that we hold this budget until we can get those two answers and then address it again.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? I think there's more than two questions. I think that we need
Yes.
to find out if we need to, if we submit a letter to the state, the reasons why, and the salary reasons, and situation in the city, would we be able to get a waiver? I don't know if the mayor has to apply for that, but I guess it's time the city council attempts to apply for a waiver. I don't know
I
what.
could address that. The one condition to obtain a waiver is that the cut in the library budget has to be shown, proved, to be within a small percentage of every other cut throughout the city.
Okay.
The other thing, if I could just make one comment, I was required to sign the contract as a condition of employment. It wasn't initiated on my end. I just want to make that clear.
Absolutely nobody here was insinuating that it was the employees
I had to say
who did that. Trust me, we know where we're laying that blame.
So if we can show to the state that we're cutting every budget appropriately, then that may be a condition of waiver.
Yes.
Thank you. Councilor Donnelly.
Thank you, Mr. President. One of the questions I have is, it's an example of municipal government, state government, federal government mandatorily requiring us to go up a certain percentage each year. So if somebody just mentioned our neighbor, Leominster, what was their budget last year? Can you find a similar or a few similar communities with the same population but a similar demographic? Now, there are communities our size that per capita income is probably double ours. How does a poor community follow the state's recommendation to just continually go up? I mean, we don't have all the people in our community contributing. So how can they make a cookie-cutter approach and make every single community follow the same percentage?
Well, one way the state does address that is that state aid is not, every town and city does not get 73,000. Fitchburg's state aid is considerably high.
Another question is, if we were decertified and we got down to a lower figure, how long would it take to get recertified?
That, right, that's a good point, in that it doesn't happen immediately. If funding came through for some reason in 6 months, no, it doesn't. It would take at least 2 years to get it back.
So I guess our
It's a
question
slow
is,
process.
if we save 100,000, are we
Going to lose 76.
wasting, if we spend 100, if we save 100,000 by cuts, are we, it's not, doesn't make any sense to keep the number up and lose 73. We're gaining. We don't know what our number is unless we attempt to get there. No one's looking for decertification. Everybody, I think most everybody, wants to see the library thrive, because I think it's part of the pulse of the city. But when the state mandates, and we're trying to follow another mandate by another section of the state, as Councilor Connery just said, and we all are trying to accomplish that, what do we do?
Councilor Caddy.
We don't want to lose the 73. We don't want to say, we don't want to reduce 100 and lose 73. That's ridiculous. I think it was Councilor Connery who said, we need to appeal to these people. We're not one of the rich communities. If it means closing our library for a day to save 18%, we got to close the library for a day, but we've got to do something with this budget. Their budget, I mean. So we've got to find the money somewhere. Certainly, the state has to come and look at this. We can't win. We can't win either way we go. They're going to have to pardon us. They're going to have to give us a break this time around. And we're going to have to do something with this. And if it's not going to be in salaries, which I don't know if you're for or against, we didn't ask the question, then it may have to be a reduction in one complete day with a library. But the numbers that we have to save in this budget, are we going to ask the taxpayers to take on the burden? People that don't even go to the library, but they're going to take on the burden of the finances of this? We can't do that.
Yeah, we are required to be open 63 hours a week. In the past, I've thought too, why not take a couple days after Christmas and close? Employees want it anyway, and no, the Mass Board of Library Commissioners says that's closure of a public library, and it is denied.
As a community, this is a community problem. The big budget is a community problem. You're just 2 pages in the big budget. And I hope you're not offended by the way I talk, but if we don't do something with your budget, then we shouldn't be touching anybody else's. Fire and police are just as important to the city as the library is, maybe more. But there are some different departments in the city that are going to take some awful big cuts. I don't think we can afford this.
Well, the waiver process, you can apply for one. That doesn't mean it's granted.
Where are the rules?
They are part of the Mass Board of Library Commissioners website. There is an application process for a waiver.
What is it again?
The Mass Board of Library Commissioners.
Thank you.
Councilor Hay.
Thank you, Mr. President. Following up on Councilor Donnelly's comments, this isn't the first and certainly won't be the last time that the federal government or the state government has created policies that, affect cities and towns without, funding them or without taking into consideration all the variables. Unfortunately, that's a way of life with government, and as frustrating as it is, I hope we don't let that block us from our goals here in what we're attempting to do. The only other comment I have is that I'm going to assume that a good majority of the people who are sitting in this hall tonight are here from the library. And I just want to say that, I think when employees and board members come out to support the organization that they're part of, it does say something to me about the leadership from the board and the leadership from the head librarian, and they should be commended for spending the time that we're spending here. Thank you.
Councilor DeSalvatore?
Although I seconded having this revisited at a later date, I still would like to see us go through the process and getting all our questions answered for the 2 pages that are represented by the library.
Councilor Tran?
Thank you, Mr. President. I think the consequences here, if we were to take any action on this budget, may be more than the city can handle if we go against the state mandate. I do feel and concur with the motion on the floor to not take any action on this budget until we get some questions answered by the state, and see if we can get a recommendation from the state to how we can proceed with this budget. I think the best course of action is to postpone this budget and move on with other city departments, and then revisit this budget once we iron out the other budgets and see what we can reduce from this budget. Thank you, Mr. President.
Councilor Connery?
I will support the motion to hold it. However, I'd like to make one suggestion that if we proceed with seeking a waiver, and if we are able to move some monies around, that we seek the assistance of both State Representative Di Natale and then Senator Antonioni to intervene on our behalf with the state. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Boisvert?
Yeah, the $750 reduction, that a maximum that we can make, is this on the previous year's budget or to the upcoming budget?
To the FY08, to these numbers that are submitted.
The upcoming budget.
The upcoming?
Yes.
This budget is only a proposal by the mayor.
Oh.
Is that correct?
Right.
So since it's on paper, it makes it what? Makes it law?
No, it just says that based on what number was submitted last year, this one has to be 2% higher than last year. So that's why this bottom figure of the 2 pages together, $1,000,000 has to be 2% higher than it was last year, and its only difference right now is by $700.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor DiMartino?
Well, we've already heard 2 heads of the department. We've been here all night, and I think the first thing I said tonight was that we should have given the budget back to the mayor, but nobody agreed with me. And I think that the mayor knew exactly that this was going to come up. I think this is not going to be the first department. There's going to be other departments. And I still say, even though we've started it, give it back to him and ask him to give us a week to come back to us and let him take the money out, because it's very painful to sit here and do what we're doing, and we didn't make the problem. I still say give him back the budget.
Councilor Caddy?
If we're going to do this, I think we should put it back into our schedule so that we know we have a date when it's coming back to us.
4 days.
I'm proposing on Wednesday, the 17th in the afternoon. 2:30. The 20th, sorry.
Wednesday, the 20th. Good.
Prior to school. Okay. Councilor Hay?
In response to Councilor DiMartino's statement about sending it back to him, the mayor has already indicated on more than one occasion that if we send this back to him, he's just going to send it back to us the same way. That's not going to do anything except we're going to lose time and be in the same position. If what she wants to accomplish is to have the mayor make those cuts, the way for this council to do that is to take no action on this budget. If we take no action on this budget on July 1st, it will be the mayor's responsibility to either submit it as is to the state, which is unbalanced, and it will be rejected, and the state will come back in and take over the finances, or then the mayor could make the appropriate changes to the budget to balance it before he sends it forward. But I, for one, as painful as this process is, prefer that we do it, because, one, he hasn't shown that he has the fortitude or the...
Careful.
Thank you, Counselor. I was editing myself. Or the desire to do it and balance it. And as difficult as it is, it's something I think it's incumbent upon us to shoulder it and do it, because that's our responsibility. It's our responsibility when the chief executive abdicates his responsibility. Thank you.
Is there any way of tracking our city's usage to other public libraries? I mean, you say that decertification doesn't allow us to have access, the city's citizens to have access to other libraries. Is there any way of measuring what the impact of that is?
I get monthly statistics on borrowing based on what city people are from. Now, other cities would also have that information. I'd have to look into it. You know, being a member of a computer network, we are linked together with all these libraries, so I would have access to numbers of that type. But really, jeopardizing certification jeopardizes our construction grants, our planning and design grant, all of our grants that we receive from the Mass Board regarding literacy services. All those things we're no longer eligible for if we're not certified. It's got big ramifications.
That's a little more important than
It's important.
whether our citizens can go borrow a book in Lemons. Councilor Hay.
Just to follow up on what I said, also, if we took no action and this went back to the mayor, the most the mayor would do would make the $760,000 that is in here that makes it unbalanced, he'd find that. I'd hope that this council's goal is to go beyond balancing it and finding some money to restore some of the positions that are cut out of this budget right now. Thank you.
Councilor Cruz. My apologies.
That's all right. Thank you, Council President. I just want to reiterate the fact that cuts have to be made. We're not necessarily, if we make cuts and recommendations, that's all we're doing. We're not telling the mayor what he should and shouldn't be doing with this. You can't leave it to the mayor. For 4 years now, he hasn't been able to give us a balanced budget. And I'm sorry, it's up to this council now to take the responsibility and do whatever is necessary. And if it deemed be the library, and I think it doesn't have to be, but if it has to be, it has to be. And I'm sorry to say that. I'm sitting here and I'm saying, should I or shouldn't I? But the truth of the matter is, we are in a financial crisis. Who's going to get the hit? I don't know yet. But the bottom line is, we as councilors have to, this budget has to be, I'm estimating at least $1 million at best, so that hopefully we can float for the next 6 months before something else comes up. So remember that, councilors, and I said to you before, it's about prioritizing. I know, granted, nobody wants to be the bad guy here, but we've got a job to do. We've given that job to the corner office, and this is what we got back. It's in our hands now. It's our responsibility. I don't want to play games 2 or 3 weeks from now, and all of a sudden July 1st comes out, but we can't set a tax rate. The cuts need to be made regardless of the situation, and I'm sorry, but this is the way the world works. So with that said, we should just do what we need to do now, make our cuts, and move on. Send the city in the right direction. Thank you, Council President.
Councilor Conway.
Thank you, Mr. President. Is the $73,000 the only grants that the library gets?
Oh, no.
How many, would any of those be in jeopardy?
All of the grants the library receives, I'd say nearly everything, because I know that some literacy grants come from other sources, but any grant definitely that comes to the Mass Board of Library Commissioners we would not be eligible for.
Can you give us the total?
Which includes, well, and it definitely includes the $40,000 we were just awarded last Thursday for a planning and design grant. that would exclude us from that 40,000. Any library construction bill, we would not be eligible for any of that.
Is there any dollar amount that you could give us, like, from this past year, or 2 or 3 years prior, and what we might be also available to us in the future?
I would have to get those numbers, I don't know offhand.
Move the motion.
Motion to
My original motion, which was to hold this.
Motion made and seconded to hold this until Wednesday, the 20th at 2:30. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any other business?
We're opposed. I'm opposed. I think we should have went ahead and made the cuts and then waited
Is
for
that
the
an
bad
opposition
news.
vote or?
How
Okay,
many are opposed?
3 in
I'm
opposition.
opposed. Were you opposed?
Were you opposed?
Yes.
So 4 in opposition.
I have a question.
Counselor Caddy.
I just, we're done with the library, I'm sorry, this is another question. Just to end this meeting, snow and ice, to jump ahead a little bit, snow and ice was funded at $330,000 next year. This year was the best year we had, we were a little bit over 500,000. 3 years ago, it was 1.1 million. So when we're talking about the 770,000,
About 2 million nearly.
we're talking well over $1 million if we include that snow and ice. It's a lot bigger than we think it is. Thank you.
Right, we're not planning, I don't know if it's been aware, but we are not planning on having any free cash coming back from the certification from the state this year. And is there a possibility that we'll have a negative free cash?
Well, I could touch on that. If there's any free cash, I think the plan, the preliminary plan is to address the potential revenue deficit that we may have at the end of fiscal year '07. So that would probably use up whatever we have in free cash. You know, it's very preliminary at this point.
It's just a quick question on the $10 million loan that the city took. Has that been paid?
No, that will be paid, I believe the date is June 29th, and that is the same day that we get our state distribution of about $11 million. So we'll be paying that $10 million plus about $133,000 in interest.
So we're not going to carry the interest over into next year?
No. As a matter of fact, we plan to submit orders next week to take care of most of the budget items, snow and ice, the debt, and there's a few other departments that need some funding.
Councilor Hay.
Following up on that, Dick, that 10 million is being paid in full, not by refinancing.
Correct. It'll be
Thank you.
paid in full.
With the 11 million that we're getting.
Yeah, the 11 get added to our cash flow, and the 10 will get paid out of that. Yes.
Where are we getting that 11 million from?
From the state. It comes in quarterly at the last day of the month.
So then
June
we're paying-
29th this year is on a Friday.
So we're paying them back the money that they're giving us.
Well, they didn't, we borrowed the money from investors, so
I
we're
know.
paying back the investors.
Well, what I'm saying, but also, are we deficit, did we pay the deficit money for the snow and ice for last year? Will that be paid with that?
Yeah, well, it'll be budgeted, and then it has been paid, actually. We're just going to have to fund budget for that deficit. So it's about $140,000. I think Dennis has transfers making it about 100 or so thousand. I haven't seen his final numbers yet, but those monies have already been spent. We're just going to replenish or make sure his budget is in the black at the end of the year.
One last question. If we hadn't have borrowed that money and we got the 11 million, of course, now I'm hallucinating, but if we got that 11 million, what could we have done with that money?
All it is cash flow.
Cash
So
flow, okay.
It doesn't affect available funds, and that's a separate item.
But what would we have done with that cash flow?
Oh, we would have invested it. It would have just been invested.
So I am wrong in saying that we owe 10 million, they're going to give us 11, but we're going to give them 10 back because it goes in through the investors, right?
Yes, we have to pay the money off
Have
that
to
we
pay
borrowed.
Peter to pay Paul. Yeah, okay, thank you.
Councilor Cruz.
It's not very nice.
Thank you, Council President. You're saying that by June 31st, we will have paid off all of our debt? Am I correct by saying so?
No, June 30th is 30 days in June. But the debt that was due to be paid in fiscal year '07 will be paid off. There is debt, long-term debt, that goes out another 20 years that we pay every year.
But it's all long-term
Oh, yes.
monies that were borrowed,
Yeah.
nothing else.
Well, we have short-term borrowings for, like the school building loan. We just renewed that loan around, actually, I think it's around the 15th. Friday, we'll be borrowing $1 million. We've spent about $800,000 to $900,000 of that. And then we're going to be borrowing $3 million for the sewer, or the work being done at the East Plant. That'll be borrowed in June, or this month. So it'll be $4 million of short-term debt. And then the following year, following June, our game plan is to formally go out for long-term bonds. So it's a short-term borrowing. When you borrow short-term, all you have to pay is the interest until you fund it through a bond issue. So you usually, you don't want to borrow small piecemeal loans. You want to build it up so it's, let's say, $5-6 million, and then the economies of scale that you save by going to market at that time, it benefits the city.
Will we be borrowing any money between now, or actually June 30th and July, because of the state spending of the money that we get from the state being spent for the $10 million you just owed?
The shortfall? At this point, I don't believe so. We are going to have to monitor that, and we'll have to get another cash flow from the treasurer. I haven't seen one going into July yet, but yeah, I have to wait until I see what the treasurer has.
Based on the current budget that was just given to us, couldn't you?
Well, it isn't only the budget, it is the spending, and the thing that also complicates matters is there are notices, there's ongoing issues with unions that are happening this week. We don't know who's coming, who's going, who's retiring, when they're going to retire, when they're going to be let go. When they leave, they may get a lump sum, sick leave buybacks. So there's all these factors that are coming into play. And how the budget is finalized by the mayor and the council could affect our cash flow, because we may need to spend money up front, where in the long run we may save money, and it could affect this year's budget or next year's budget. And I must say that not knowing this information could create a little bit of, we're in like a state of flux, not sure. Even my budget, I'm losing my assistant, and I don't have money budgeted for if he does get let go, he may retire, and then he'll be eligible for a sick leave buyback, so I'll need $10,000 or thereabouts to pay him, as well as other bigger departments. So it's, we'll see.
We'll see. Councilor DiMartino.
Why are you borrowing $3 million for the sewerage?
Based on their cash flow, they're going to be spending, they've already spent maybe $1 million for the project down at the East Plant. It's the odor control project. It's $5 to $6 million, and based on a cash flow, that money will be spent by December, and then we're going to borrow another $3 million in December to fund the total cost, which is $6 million.
Yeah, but I thought that the money that we just put up on our sewerage rates was to help them out. Is that a different issue altogether?
Actually, they're really they're related in that we're paying off that revenue shortfall, but we're also planning to pay off some debt, or the new debt that they're going to assume.
Mr. Saracen, I've been here 14 years, and I don't know how many times we have paid to solve the odor in the plant. I think it's more than once.
We capped it.
Yes, and we recapped it and capped it and recapped it and capped it.
These are mandates by DEP, and as Joe Jordan pointed out, there's another $6 million behind that $6 million for the grit removal project. So that's really why the rate, long-term, is needed, and why he says he probably will come back.
Just to let you know, the odor was very offensive when I left BJ's this afternoon.
Yeah, it's every year.
It's not like the odor's gone away like we've been told it is, because it stinks.
It'd be cheaper to buy perfume and spray it around.
Councilor Connery.
Mr. President, I'd like to get away from odors and money orders, et cetera, and just say I believe the council owes a thanks to all these people from the library who have been patient with us this evening. Unfortunately, we have been unable to resolve the issue, but with the leadership of this council, I think we will be able to resolve it. And again, thank you all for your patience, and with that, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, motion made and second to adjourn. Councilor Caddy.
One more request from Mr. Saracen. It's my understanding that Chapter 90 funds this year went over 800,000. I think we got a bump.
It may be around that.
I had asked you earlier, but maybe if you could give the commissioner a heads up. I'd like to know if we can transfer a portion, maybe half of that, to our DPW account for road work and supplement their wages. If that's possible, that would be 400,000 right off the top.
Okay, I'll pass that on to the commissioner.
Thank you.
One last.
I want to thank everybody for my flowers. It was very nice.